Scattered across shifting tides, atop long-eroded coastlines, and hidden within the ruins of vanished cities, remnants of a civilization endure that defy reason and challenge history itself. From crystal libraries that seem to contain knowledge beyond comprehension to bridges and conduits that vanish as if the Earth itself guards their secrets, the world of Atlantis is filled with enigmas that continue to perplex explorers and scholars alike. As you follow each revelation in this video, you'll trace sunken temples, witness the glow of ever-burning lamps, and examine maps of continents lost to memory. You will encounter flying discs, monoliths that resist movement, and statues that whisper in silence, piecing together fragments of a civilization whose ingenuity surpasses recorded history. Through these stories, mysteries emerge that stretch the limits of human understanding and the natural world. The Atlantean Crystal Libraries. Deep beneath the restless ocean, where the sun's rays can barely pierce the thick veil of water, lie the remnants of a civilization whose achievements defy comprehension. Atlantis, a name that has haunted the imaginations of historians, explorers, and mystics alike, is said to have housed crystal libraries of immense scale and unparalleled sophistication. Unlike any conventional archives, these libraries were constructed not from stone or clay, but from enormous transparent crystals whose very composition hints at technologies far beyond the reach of modern science. These were not decorative structures or ceremonial displays. They were living repositories capable of storing, transmitting, and even amplifying information in ways that contemporary understanding struggles to explain. The notion of Atlantean crystal libraries first emerged in the scattered accounts of explorers and chroniclers who ventured into submerged ruins along the Atlantic seafloor. They describe vast halls lined with massive crystal blocks, each one inscribed with symbols and diagrams that glimmered with an internal light. Some of these explorers claimed that the crystals themselves emitted subtle vibrations, audible only under specific conditions, suggesting that the Atlanteans may have developed a form of communication or data transfer based on frequency resonance. Modern researchers studying the piezoelectric properties of natural crystals have confirmed that certain minerals can indeed produce electrical charges when subjected to pressure or sound waves, but what the Atlantean examples reportedly accomplished appears to exceed anything observed in nature. The organisation of these libraries was equally extraordinary. Some accounts depict corridors branching like neural pathways, with crystals of varying sizes embedded in the walls, floors, and ceilings. Inscriptions seem to document not only practical knowledge, astronomical charts, mathematical formulas, and engineering schematics, but also philosophical and metaphysical principles, suggesting that the Atlanteans saw no distinction between science, art, and spirituality. One particular discovery, reported by a team surveying the Bahamian underwater plateaus, described a room with a crystalline lattice that refracted sunlight from above the water in patterns resembling flowing scripts, as if the very light itself carried encoded knowledge. If verified, this would suggest that Atlantean engineers had found a way to manipulate both matter and energy to preserve and transmit information in ways modern humanity barely begins to understand. The locations of these crystal libraries remain a mystery. While some researchers focus on the submerged plateaus near the Azores, others have explored deep-sea ridges farther west, where sonar scans reveal regular geometric formations that defy natural explanation. Despite technological advancements in underwater archaeology, nothing has been conclusively identified as a crystal library, though fragments of crystalline structures, unusually shaped and unnaturally polished, continue to appear in disparate locations. These fragments, often resembling broken monoliths, suggest the existence of far larger constructions, possibly extending for hundreds of meters in a layout that indicates deliberate planning rather than geological happenstance. Beyond their physical construction, the purported abilities of these libraries are the most confounding. Some testimonies describe crystals that stored information in layers accessible only when exposed to specific sound frequencies or light intensities. Others suggest that the libraries were capable of interacting with human consciousness, amplifying memory, or even granting visions of events long past. In modern laboratories, studies of crystal acoustics show that sound waves can indeed alter the vibrational properties of certain minerals, and some researchers speculate that Atlanteans may have combined these natural principles with techniques we have yet to discover. The very idea of a civilization capable of encoding knowledge in a form that persists for millennia and responds to stimuli is as unsettling as it is awe-inspiring. Accounts of encounters with these crystals often border on the mystical. Explorers describe moments of vertigo or disorientation, a sense that the halls themselves were alive, observing, or guiding those who entered. In some cases, they reported sudden flashes of insight, geometrical, mathematical, or philosophical, that seemed to emanate directly from the crystals. Whether these experiences were induced by the environment, by the structure of the crystals themselves, or by the mind's response to stimuli, no clear explanation has emerged. What is certain is that such reports reinforce the impression that the Atlantean libraries were not merely functional archives, but instruments designed to expand consciousness, to link the observer with the stored knowledge in ways that transcend ordinary comprehension. The implications of these discoveries are staggering. If Atlantis did in fact possess such advanced knowledge and technology, how much of it was lost to the ocean when the civilization vanished? Could the principles behind crystal-based information storage illuminate new possibilities for energy, computing, or communication today? And if the knowledge of the Atlanteans was deliberately hidden or protected, what does that say about the intentions of those who built the libraries in the first place? The more researchers uncover, the more questions arise, creating an intricate web of mystery that spans disciplines, from archaeology to physics, from history to metaphysics. Efforts to locate entire libraries continue, using submersibles equipped with sonar mapping, deep-sea drones, and underwater excavation tools. Despite the technological sophistication, explorers are often met with the same haunting ambiguity: fragments of crystalline structures, unexplained geometric formations, and the persistent sense that something monumental has been lost to the depths. Even if the physical structures could be mapped, the challenge of decoding the knowledge contained within them remains enormous. Modern science can examine the minerals, study their optical and acoustic properties, and attempt to reconstruct their form, yet understanding their function may require insights we do not yet possess. In this pursuit, the story of the Atlantean crystal libraries is not just a tale of lost knowledge, but also a meditation on the limits of human understanding. It is a reminder that even in a world increasingly dominated by technology and information, there exist mysteries that challenge the very framework of what we consider possible. And as explorers continue to descend into the silent, cold depths in search of these crystalline halls, one question lingers above all else, unspoken yet palpable. What if the knowledge within the crystals is not merely lost, but waiting for the right mind to awaken it? Sunken temples of the spiral oceans. A drone weaving through the Atlantic currents revealed formations that spiraled with impossible precision, each curve stretching farther than the eye could trace, suggesting design rather than chance. The instruments captured faint reflections on the seafloor that glimmered like stone polished over centuries, yet the patterns were far too deliberate to have arisen naturally. These spirals, concentric and symmetrical, seemed to pulse with the rhythm of the ocean, as if the structures themselves were attuned to the movement of water, tides and pressure, integrating the environment into their very form. The scale alone was staggering. Some formations extended over hundreds of meters, and the space within their curves suggested chambers or ceremonial grounds hidden beneath layers of silt and sand. The stone rings twisted outward, their concentric paths suggesting a knowledge of geometry unmatched in known history. Observers noted that the curves followed ratios remarkably close to the Fibonacci sequence, a mathematical pattern found in nature yet seldom realized in large-scale human constructions of antiquity. This correlation has fueled speculation that the Atlanteans, if responsible, possessed both an advanced understanding of mathematics and a desire to embed cosmic principles into their architecture. Unlike pyramids or conventional temples, which emphasize height or vertical dominance, the spiral temples spread horizontally in perfect rhythm, as if the builders intended to create a living diagram upon the ocean floor. Researchers mapping the seafloor noticed patterns repeating over miles, as if a single mind had orchestrated them across the vast expanse. Using sonar and photogrammetry, teams reconstructed the spirals in three-dimensional models, revealing that smaller rings nested within larger ones, forming a fractal-like composition that continued into the distance. These repetitions were not merely ornamental. Each spiral appeared to align with nearby ridges, valleys, and undersea currents, indicating a sophisticated awareness of both geology and hydrodynamics. The notion that a civilization could coordinate such vast constructions with consistent precision over this scale challenges our understanding of ancient engineering capabilities. Speculation about the temple's purpose ranges from celestial observation to ceremonial gatherings lost to time. Some researchers argue that the largest spiral cores may have functioned as observatories, their angles and orientations aligning with solstices or the movements of distant stars, allowing the Atlanteans to chart celestial events long before conventional astronomy emerged. Others suggest ritualistic use, imagining processions or gatherings that followed the spiral paths, creating patterns visible only from a height or through some unknown form of perception. Regardless of interpretation, the interplay between the spirals and their surroundings hints at intentionality far beyond decoration, suggesting a purpose tied to both human experience and environmental harmony. Currents and tides seem to dance along the spiral pathways, hinting that the ocean itself was an instrument of design. Video footage shows eddies forming within the curves, tracing the shapes as if the water were flowing through preordained channels. This interaction between the temples and the environment may not be coincidental. The builders could have anticipated the movement of the sea, positioning the structures to harness, amplify, or reflect the forces of water in ways modern science has yet to replicate. The concept that architecture could interact dynamically with its natural setting raises profound questions about the Atlanteans' understanding of energy, balance, and the physical laws governing their world. Strange anomalies appear where the spiral structures intersect tectonic ridges, defying conventional explanations of erosion or natural formation. Sections of the spirals rise sharply from the seabed, aligned perfectly along fault lines that would have been active for millennia, yet the stone remains unfractured and uniform. These intersections suggest either deliberate placement to take advantage of geological stability or knowledge of the Earth's movements beyond our current grasp. The precision required to construct across shifting tectonic plates while maintaining perfect symmetry implies planning, foresight, and engineering mastery that seem incompatible with the tools and techniques attributed to early civilizations. Submersible crews describe an unsettling sensation, as though the spirals bend perception and compress time within their curves. Divers report vertigo and subtle disorientation when moving along the rings, a physical reaction compounded by the visual patterns and the vastness of the structures. Some accounts suggest that light refracted through the water, and sediment amplifies the illusion of movement within the spirals, creating a sensory effect that could have been intentionally designed. If the Atlanteans anticipated human perception as part of their architecture, they were not only engineers but also psychological artisans, crafting spaces that interacted with cognition and awareness itself. Every discovery amplifies the mystery, leaving scientists and historians grasping at fragments of a civilization that has vanished without a trace. Each sonar map, each submersible photograph, uncovers only part of the complex lattice of spirals, hinting at an expanse far larger than initially imagined. Attempts to interpret the site through known historical or archaeological frameworks repeatedly fail, reinforcing the impression that the Atlanteans operated under a paradigm of knowledge that is now lost. The more researchers learn, the more questions arise about why these structures were built, how they were engineered, and what meaning they held for those who constructed them. The sunken temples of the spiral oceans remain an enigma, their spirals stretching across the seabed with deliberate elegance, hinting at knowledge that blends art, science, and perhaps something entirely beyond human comprehension. Divers and researchers alike are left to navigate not only the labyrinthine formations, but the layers of meaning embedded within them, as if every curve and channel were designed to communicate with those who can perceive it. Each exploration uncovers fragments of a civilization that thrived with a vision both meticulous and unknowable, leaving patterns that defy natural explanation and challenge the limits of imagination. Even with advanced technology, the full scale and purpose of these submerged temples remain just out of reach, teasing humanity with glimpses of a world that vanished without explanation. No one can say for certain whether the spirals were meant to guide, protect, or teach, or if they conceal truths too profound for the modern mind to comprehend. The immovable monoliths of Atlantis. Massive stones rose from the ocean floor, their sheer size dwarfing the submersibles that hovered beside them, casting long shadows across the silt and coral that had claimed the seabed over centuries. Some measured more than 20 meters in length, with widths and heights that made even modern cranes seem inadequate, and yet each monolith appeared deliberately placed, as if an unseen hand had arranged them with meticulous care. Their surfaces were unusually smooth, the edges unnaturally straight, suggesting tools or techniques that could cut and polish stone in ways still unattainable with contemporary technology. Marine life had grown around and atop them, yet the scale of the stones remained impossible to ignore, a silent testament to a civilization that understood and commanded forces far beyond what we can imagine. Some show striations indicating repeated abrasion, while others bear geometric incisions that may have served symbolic or functional purposes, yet their origin remains obscure. Geological analysis of nearby formations suggests that many of these stones were quarried far from their final resting places, hinting at a level of logistics and engineering sophistication that defies known ancient methods. The uniformity of the rock types, combined with their precise placement, continues to puzzle experts, prompting questions about the Atlanteans' understanding of leverage, buoyancy, and the use of natural forces to move colossal objects across distances. Close examination of the monolith's surfaces reveals faint grooves and tool marks that hint at technologies now lost to time. Some lines run perfectly parallel for meters, while others curve at precise angles, suggesting the use of chisels, abrasive techniques, or perhaps even mechanical devices unknown to contemporary archaeologists. Chemical analysis indicates that certain stones contain traces of minerals or residues consistent with heating or chemical treatment, hinting that the Atlanteans may have softened or shaped the rock in ways that reduced the effort of moving or carving. They also reinforce the idea that the monoliths were not just monumental but the product of a highly sophisticated, calculated, and experimental approach to construction. Their arrangement across the seabed hints at a deliberate pattern, with alignments that defy conventional logic. Some monoliths form rows and grids, others radiate outward from central points, creating angles and spacing that suggest intentional design rather than haphazard deposition. Researchers have noted correlations between the placement of certain stones and magnetic anomalies in the surrounding area, while others align roughly with celestial events such as solstices or equinoxes. The interplay between these massive stones and both the natural environment and astronomical markers hints at a civilization that integrated architecture, science, and spirituality into a seamless whole, leaving puzzles that still challenge the limits of comprehension. For centuries, scholars have debated how a civilization could transport such colossal stones without modern machinery. Theories range from simple logs and sledges to complex pulley systems or water-assisted flotation techniques, yet no evidence has conclusively demonstrated a feasible method. Experiments with large stone replicas have shown that even a small number of monoliths require enormous coordination and manpower, making the scale of the Atlantean examples almost inconceivable. Some propose that the Atlanteans may have harnessed yet unknown principles of physics, perhaps manipulating buoyancy, friction, or other forces in ways that left no trace beyond the stones themselves. Comparisons with the megalithic temples of Baalbek and the underwater formations near Yonaguni suggest that ancient builders were capable of feats once thought impossible. Baalbek's trilithons, weighing hundreds of tons, required ingenuity and labour to transport, while Yonaguni's submerged terraces demonstrate geometric precision in stone under extreme conditions. The Atlantean monoliths share these characteristics, but magnify them, combining colossal scale with complex arrangements that defy conventional logic. Unlike their terrestrial counterparts, the ocean imposes unique challenges. Pressure, currents, and corrosion threaten any construction effort, which only emphasises the extraordinary capabilities that must have been at play. Divers report a tangible sense of awe, describing the monoliths as imposing not only in size but in presence, as if they were silent guardians of the deep. Even experienced engineers and archaeologists recount feelings of vertigo and disorientation when navigating between the stones, a psychological effect compounded by the overwhelming scale and the seeming impossibility of their construction. Some describe subtle vibrations or echoes that travel differently around the monoliths, hinting at acoustic properties or structural phenomena intentionally exploited by the builders. Whether these sensations are products of perception or evidence of advanced Atlantean design, they reinforce the sense that the monoliths were constructed with purposes beyond mere functionality. Some theorists propose that these stones served ritualistic, defensive, or astronomical purposes though no consensus exists. The precision of alignment may indicate ceremonial pathways or markers for important events, while the scale could reflect status, power, or a protective function against natural forces or rival civilizations. Certain stones appear positioned to focus or redirect energy, whether magnetic, solar, or even tidal, though evidence for such capabilities is speculative. What remains indisputable is that the monolith's size, placement, and orientation combine into a pattern that continues to baffle, suggesting both intention and capability far exceeding that of any known contemporaneous culture. Even after meticulous mapping and analysis, the monoliths continue to defy explanation, standing as monuments to a civilization erased by time. Each expedition uncovers more questions than answers, from the methods of construction to the reason behind their arrangement, and the more scientists investigate, the more impossible the structures seem. The ocean's depths conceal the full extent of these formations, leaving researchers to infer scale, purpose, and technique from fragments and sonar echoes. Every discovery reinforces a paradox. The monoliths are at once familiar in their geometry and alien in their execution, a legacy of ingenuity that challenges the limits of human understanding. And somewhere, beneath the crushing pressure of the ocean, a force that shaped these stones waits to reveal itself. Atlantean water conduits that defy physics. Channels of stone stretch beneath the waves, forming a network that seems to anticipate the movement of water itself, as if the Atlanteans understood principles of flow and pressure far beyond what has survived in historical record. The conduits twist and turn across the seabed, some submerged in shallow currents while others vanish into deep trenches, connecting in patterns that suggest deliberate planning and engineering mastery. Surveys of the structures reveal smooth, polished interiors that resist the accumulation of sediment, and occasional chambers appear designed to regulate water speed, as though the builders intended to control not just direction but the very force of the currents. These passages extend for kilometers, hinting at a system built to sustain a thriving network, yet the civilization that designed them has long vanished beneath the tides of time. The conduits are carved from dense, impermeable rock, joined with precision that prevents leakage even after millennia underwater. In some sections, stones are cut to interlock seamlessly, their surfaces bearing traces of what could have been advanced polishing techniques or chemical treatments to enhance durability. Engineers examining these features note that conventional ancient construction would struggle to achieve this level of watertight accuracy, particularly under the pressure of repeated tidal cycles and shifting sediment. The uniformity of the channels, along with occasional embedded reliefs and markings, suggests not only functionality but a symbolic or ceremonial dimension to the conduit's design. Water flows through some passages in ways that defy the expected principles of gravity and pressure. In certain inclines, the liquid appears to rise slightly or maintain a steady velocity despite what should be resistance, a phenomenon that has led some researchers to speculate about hidden siphons, air chambers, or yet unrecognized methods of hydraulic engineering. Experiments with replicas have failed to reproduce these effects reliably, reinforcing the impression that the Atlanteans harnessed knowledge of fluid dynamics lost to history. The pathways often split and merge with apparent randomness, yet achieve consistent distribution, as if a single guiding principle governed the entire network. Currents and subterranean springs appear to interact seamlessly with the conduits, suggesting an advanced knowledge of natural hydraulics. Mapping of nearby freshwater inflows indicates that the Atlanteans may have located or even diverted underground aquifers to feed their system, while tidal cycles seem to synchronize with certain segments, possibly to refill chambers or regulate flow. The alignment of channels with the terrain hints at careful planning, taking advantage of natural slopes and minimizing energy loss. Such integration of natural forces into construction implies not only sophisticated engineering, but a philosophical understanding of harmony between human design and the environment. Similarities with ancient aqueducts, canats, and underground reservoirs hint at a shared understanding of water management, yet the scale here far surpasses any known civilization. Roman engineers perfected arches and gravity-fed channels over centuries, while the Persian canats channeled desert water across vast distances, but the Atlantean conduits combine length, complexity, and underwater resilience in a manner unmatched in the archaeological record. The coordination required to quarry, transport, and assemble these structures while maintaining hydraulic function, suggests capabilities beyond what historians typically credit to pre-modern societies. Unexpected currents and abrupt changes in flow challenge divers, as if the conduits themselves respond to touch or force. Some have described experiencing unexpected currents that appear to follow the body's motion or surge along corridors without visible cause, creating sensations of weightlessness or resistance. These phenomena could be the result of submerged chambers, venting systems, or natural hydraulics, yet their consistency across multiple exploration sites adds to the mystery. Observers note that light refracts differently within certain channels, giving the impression of movement within the stone itself, as though the Atlanteans embedded an awareness of perception into the very architecture of water. The purposes of these channels remain speculative, from sustaining cities to ritualistic or symbolic significance. Some scholars propose that the conduits powered fountains, baths, or energy-generating devices long since lost, while others imagine ceremonial uses where water played a role in purification or symbolic transitions. The recurring motifs carved into the stone walls, often geometric or wave-like, hint at a culture that merged practical engineering with aesthetic and spiritual expression. Whatever the intent, the conduit's complexity implies foresight, experimentation, and a mastery of both water and stone that has no clear parallel in the known historical record. Despite repeated exploration, the full network remains hidden, and its secrets continue to evade comprehension. Sonar scans and submersible dives reveal fragments of interconnected channels, yet the complete system likely spans far beyond what has been documented. Every attempt to map the conduits produces more questions: how they manage pressure over long distances, how they ensured maintenance without collapsing, and what role these channels played in Atlantean society. Each discovery only deepens the enigma, leaving researchers to speculate about techniques, intentions, and knowledge that disappeared along with the civilization itself. The Atlantean water conduits are more than mere channels; they represent the ingenuity and audacity of a civilization that manipulated forces of nature with precision unknown to modern engineering. Each passage, from twisting siphons to straight-flowing aqueducts, demonstrates a meticulous understanding of water, pressure, and material, as if every curve and joint were calculated to survive both time and oceanic forces. Explorers and scientists alike are left in awe of how these conduits integrate seamlessly with the natural terrain, tapping underground springs, guiding currents, and maintaining flow across impossible distances. The more researchers study them, the more the conduits reveal not only technological mastery, but an aesthetic and possibly symbolic vision, a marriage of function, artistry, and mystery that has left no written record to explain it. Deep within the hidden channels, a force that shaped the water still waits, unseen and unknowable. The ever-burning Atlantean lamps. Flickers of light shimmered through the submerged halls, casting shadows that seemed alive on the Atlantean walls, and though centuries of sediment and coral growth obscured much of the architecture, the glow persisted as if untouched by time. These lamps, discovered during deep-sea explorations of the city's central complexes, appeared unlike any conventional fuel-based device. Their light did not waver, flicker, or diminish, even in areas where airflow was minimal and water pressure was considerable. The effect was subtle yet undeniable. Divers reported an ethereal warmth and a faint hum, sensations that suggested the lamps were more than ornamental or practical. They were functional yet inexplicably alive in their illumination. Examination of surrounding structures indicates that the lamps were carefully positioned to highlight pathways, altars, and intricate reliefs, implying a deliberate integration with the city's ceremonial and domestic spaces. Each lamp is encased in a metallic shell, intricately carved, yet the mechanism within remains invisible to modern scrutiny. The metal appears to resist corrosion in a way that challenges contemporary understanding, as though alloyed with a substance lost to history. Tiny channels within the casing suggest that the Atlanteans may have controlled airflow, releasing gases or vapours that sustained combustion, yet no residue typical of fuel burning has been found. Some lamps bear inscriptions whose meaning is uncertain but may reference light, energy, or divine presence, hinting at symbolic as well as practical purposes. The uniformity and precision of the lamp construction across multiple sites suggest a standardized knowledge, indicating that Atlantean artisans understood both material science and engineering principles far advanced for their era. Chemical traces within the reservoirs hint at oils or compounds that might explain extended combustion, though none account for the phenomenon entirely. Analysis reveals traces of phosphorescent minerals, fatty acids, and small amounts of sulfur, yet the proportions are inconsistent with sustained burning over decades or centuries. Laboratory recreations produce short-lived glows at best, never the steady brilliance observed in situ. This discrepancy fuels speculation that the Atlanteans had access to chemical reactions, catalytic materials, or environmental energy sources now lost to human knowledge. The lamp's endurance, despite exposure to water, pressure, and temperature fluctuations, implies an understanding of energy retention and chemical stabilization that borders on the impossible. Airflow through the corridors appears to sustain the flames, as if the builders understood ventilation and energy in ways still mysterious. Many lamps are situated near vents or in chambers with subtle inclines, suggesting that air or water currents were harnessed deliberately to enhance combustion or optical effects. The interplay between architectural design and the lamp's placement hints at a sophisticated grasp of physics, including pressure differentials and controlled drafts. Even small movements of water or shifts in ambient temperature seem to influence the flame's behaviour, a phenomenon that has baffled engineers and divers alike. It is as though the lamps were designed not only to illuminate but to interact dynamically with the environment, a silent testament to the Atlanteans' ingenuity. Witnesses describe the light as unwavering, almost sentient, resisting wind, water, and the passage of centuries. Divers recount that the glow seems to react subtly to human presence, brightening along paths and dimming in empty corridors, a sensation both unnerving and mesmerizing. The colour varies from a soft golden hue to pale blue-white, lending the submerged halls an otherworldly aura. Some speculate that this effect is purely optical, a result of mineral refraction or phosphorescence, yet repeated observations suggest intentionality in design. The sense of continuity, of a flame untouched by decay, challenges conventional understanding of fuel and energy, leaving a lingering question about the source and purpose of such enduring illumination. Comparable technologies, from Roman oil lamps to ancient Mesopotamian beacons, rely on known fuels, yet the Atlantean examples defy such conventions. Roman engineers developed oil-fed lamps that required regular maintenance, while Mesopotamian beacons depended on continuous replenishment of fuel. In contrast, the Atlantean lamps show no evidence of refueling systems, nor do they display ash or soot accumulation, suggesting an autonomous energy source. Some researchers posit that the Atlanteans may have exploited chemical energy stored in minerals or employed a form of atmospheric or environmental catalysis. If true, this would represent a level of technological mastery unmatched by any civilization that has left written or material traces in the historical record. Some theorists suggest ceremonial, symbolic, or even energetic purposes, linking the light to rituals, celestial events, or hidden power sources. The placement of the lamps often coincides with altars, staircases, and observation points, suggesting their illumination played a role in guiding attention or evoking a spiritual experience. Certain inscriptions near lamp mounts reference motion, continuity, or eternal presence, reinforcing the impression that the flame symbolized more than illumination. It is possible that the Atlanteans viewed light as a bridge between the physical and metaphysical, a tool to connect their architectural mastery with cultural or religious understanding. No experiment or observation has yet explained the lamps, leaving contemporary witnesses in awe and uncertainty. Sonar scans, chemical analyses, and exploratory dives have revealed only fragments of the network, yet the lamp's consistent design and function imply a civilization with not only technological sophistication, but a deep philosophical relationship with light and energy. Each discovery raises further inquiries. How was energy sustained indefinitely? How did the lamps interact with environmental forces? And what greater purpose did they serve in the city's broader design? The more scientists investigate, the more it becomes clear that the lamps were not merely practical devices, but artifacts of knowledge and artistry, their secrets partially hidden beneath centuries of water and memory. Amid the crumbling stones, a light persists, unclaimed by centuries or human knowledge. The lost Atlantean flying discs. Fragments of bronze and stone, circular and etched with intricate symbols, hint at machines that may have once defied gravity, their shapes preserved in the seabed long after the city itself disappeared beneath the waves. Divers have described encountering these discs partially buried among collapsed columns and temple remnants, some spanning several meters in diameter, their surfaces unusually smooth yet marked by what appear to be grooves, channels and symbols that may have served a functional purpose. The patterns suggest careful craftsmanship, as though the designers understood principles of balance, rotation or energy distribution that modern engineering struggles to replicate. Even in partial form, the discs convey a sense of purposeful design, a harmony between material, form and potential motion that challenges conventional ideas of ancient technology. Analysis of the disc's composition reveals alloys stronger than many known metals, resistant to corrosion even after centuries underwater, and in some areas, traces of unknown compounds appear fused with the surfaces. These findings indicate a level of metallurgical sophistication that surpasses the capabilities of civilizations traditionally credited with bronze and early ironwork. Some discs display hollow chambers or cavities that could have housed mechanisms, fluids, or energy-conducting materials, though repeated exploration has yet to reveal any remnants of moving parts. The precision of the cuts, the uniformity of curvature, and the apparent consideration for structural integrity suggest that the Atlanteans may have understood mechanical principles far ahead of their time. The shape and curvature suggest careful study of airflow, lift, and balance, though no known mechanism explains sustained movement. Aerodynamic modelling of the disc's geometry demonstrates that their design could potentially create stability and rotation, yet the forces required to lift such heavy structures remain unexplained. Some theorists propose that the grooves on the surface functioned as channels for fluids or gases, manipulating pressure or displacement in ways that mimic principles of flight, though empirical tests have not reproduced these effects. The possibility that Atlantean engineers employed materials or energies now lost to history only deepens the mystery, as the discs remain tantalizingly close to functionality, yet inaccessible to replication. Platforms and ramps discovered near the discs indicate that they may have been designed for launch or demonstration, blending architecture with function. These structures often align with elevated terraces or ceremonial plazas, suggesting a deliberate coupling of human observation and mechanical operation. Some ramps slope into deeper channels or water basins, implying the use of gravity, buoyancy, or water-assisted launch mechanisms. The consistent presence of such features across multiple sites hints at a standardized system or method, reinforcing the notion that flight, or at least controlled movement, was an intended aspect of these enigmatic devices. Ancient texts and carvings from distant cultures describe circular flying devices, offering possible historical parallels that hint at shared knowledge or inspiration. Hindu texts recount vimanas, flying chariots capable of traversing the skies, while Mesopotamian and Egyptian depictions occasionally feature disc-like forms in ceremonial contexts. Though the connections are speculative, the similarities suggest that knowledge of circular airborne machines may have been more widespread than traditionally acknowledged. The Atlantean examples, however, remain unique in their combination of scale, materials, and precision, implying a civilization that approached flight with both ingenuity and purpose, leaving traces in form if not in written record. Near particular fragments, turbulence behaves strangely, hinting at a residual energy embedded within the structure. Some note small vortices forming unexpectedly near submerged discs, altering sediment patterns and even causing minor currents along previously still channels. Whether these effects are natural hydrodynamic phenomena, magnetic interactions, or echoes of the original motion, they reinforce the perception that the discs were once dynamic, interactive devices rather than static ornaments. Each observation adds to the sense that the Atlanteans were not merely crafting symbolic objects, but engineering functional machines, their knowledge of materials, forces, and possibly energies lost with the city itself. The purpose of these discs remains speculative, ranging from ceremonial flight to transportation or defense, each theory more enigmatic than the last. Some scholars suggest that they were primarily ritualistic, designed to move briefly in controlled demonstrations that marked astronomical events or reinforced cultural hierarchies. Others argue for utilitarian purposes, such as rapid transport of people or objects across city platforms or waterways. yet no evidence definitively confirms either theory, leaving the discs suspended between imagination and historical plausibility. What is certain is that the Atlanteans possessed the ambition, skill, and insight to conceive structures that challenge modern expectations of ancient engineering. Careful reconstructions cannot yet capture the disc's intended motion, leaving modern engineers in a mixture of admiration and frustration. Every test, from scaled replicas to computer modelling, reproduces only partial aspects of stability or rotation, never the fully realised functionality implied by the original structures. Scholars are left to speculate about hidden mechanisms, unknown energy sources, or advanced aerodynamics that may have existed in Atlantis, and each fragment recovered or documented reinforces the mystery rather than diminishing it. The discs continue to hover on the edge of possibility, a testament to ingenuity now submerged and nearly lost. Within the forgotten chambers, discs may remain, waiting for the instant their secrets are lifted into the light again. Atlantean maps of a forgotten world. Etched upon smooth slabs of stone, the fragments of Atlantean maps reveal coastlines that vanish into the unknown, contours of lands that may have been swallowed by the sea or erased by the slow passage of millennia. Divers who first encountered these relics describe a sense of disorientation as they trace the carved lines, noting both recognisable shores and regions that defy modern geography. The maps are meticulous, with engraved grids, arcs, and coordinates that hint at a civilization deeply familiar with measurement, scale, and proportion. Yet the materials themselves, densely polished stone resistant to water erosion, suggest care taken to preserve knowledge against time and tide. Small symbols, sometimes representing mountains, rivers, or settlements, appear alongside intricate notations whose meaning remains elusive, offering a glimpse into the Atlanteans' understanding of a world both known and forgotten. The precision of these lines and symbols suggests tools or methods far beyond what conventional ancient civilizations employed. Some segments show remarkably straight lines, extending across continents, indicating a grasp of geometric principles and perhaps even spherical projection. Tests conducted by modern researchers reveal that even minor deviations in angle or proportion would have rendered the maps inaccurate, yet the Atlanteans achieved consistency across multiple fragments. Analysis of engraved channels also suggests the use of specialized compasses, measuring rods, or water-level instruments, which may have allowed cartographers to capture landforms with extraordinary accuracy despite the absence of modern technology. Certain features correspond closely to modern coastlines, islands, and mountain ranges, yet others are entirely alien, forming shapes that have no contemporary counterpart. Some speculate that these unknown land masses once existed, now submerged by rising oceans or hidden beneath thick sediment. Others propose that they represent regions that Atlanteans claimed as part of their cultural or spiritual domain, documented in ways that blend factual geography with symbolic or ritual significance. The juxtaposition of the familiar and the unrecognizable enhances the sense of mystery, leaving researchers to wonder whether these maps are historical records, navigational tools, or repositories of encoded knowledge. Inscriptions along the margins reference stars, planets, and celestial phenomena, hinting at a sophisticated integration of astronomy with geography. Atlantean surveyors may have relied on celestial observation to triangulate distances, chart latitude, or align settlements along meridian lines, a practice that implies both theoretical knowledge and meticulous application. Some carvings resemble constellations still recognizable today, while others are unlike any known stellar configuration, suggesting either lost astronomical knowledge or symbolic representations intended for ritualized navigation. These celestial annotations underscore the possibility that Atlantean cartography functioned as both a practical guide and a cultural record, merging the material and the metaphysical in a single, unified vision. Comparable ancient maps, such as the Piri Reis or Oronteus Fenias charts, hint at a shared awareness of distant lands and unusual coastlines, yet none match the clarity, scale, and precision of Atlantean fragments. While scholars debate the origins and transmission of such knowledge, the Atlantean maps stand apart in their combination of technical sophistication and artistic expression. Their lines are simultaneously mathematical and aesthetic, suggesting a civilization that valued accuracy as much as symbolism, and whose cartographic records were designed to endure centuries without degradation. Even when fragmented, the surviving pieces convey a sense of wholeness, as though the map itself retains memory of an entire world now lost. Fingers gliding over the maps reveal not just form but hidden meaning, a sensation noted by divers and scholars alike. Sediment has filled portions of the engravings, yet careful brushing reveals detail in relief, from delicate river courses to subtle depictions of harbour inlets. In some instances, small perforations suggest the use of measuring cords or sighting instruments, evidence that the Atlanteans employed systematic methodologies to capture the dimensions and relationships of distant lands. Observers report a strange sense of scale, as if the maps were designed not only to record but also to immerse the viewer, offering a perspective that combines the immediate, the distant, and the lost. Scholars speculate that these maps may have served multiple purposes: navigation, ceremonial, orientation, or the codification of a world long vanished. Some posit that Atlantean explorers recorded territories beyond their immediate domain, preserving knowledge of submerged islands or forgotten continents for posterity. Others suggest the maps functioned as guides for spiritual journeys, aligning sacred structures with celestial bodies and terrestrial landmarks alike. Whatever the intention, the consistency, scale, and detail indicate that Atlanteans treated mapping as both a technical and philosophical endeavour, a means of imposing order upon a complex and mysterious world. Though studied for decades, the maps continue to guard their mysteries, teasing glimpses of lands that existed before modern history. Each fragment, each line and symbol raises new questions. How accurate were the depictions of submerged lands? Did the Atlanteans chart regions beyond human reach? Were these maps purely functional, or were they repositories of knowledge meant to transcend generations? The surviving evidence offers no definitive answers, only the sense that these documents are fragments of a civilization whose understanding of the earth and sky surpassed anything known in contemporary history. Atlantean maps remain one of the most tantalizing links to a forgotten world, revealing mastery of geography, astronomy, and artistry that continues to elude modern comprehension. Some fragments show coastlines and islands that correspond to regions now submerged, hinting at rising oceans or lost land masses that were once part of the Atlantean realm. Intricate symbols along the edges may indicate celestial alignments or trade routes, suggesting that these maps were more than navigational tools. They were records of both the physical and cosmic order known to the Atlanteans. In yet-to-be-found rooms, Atlantean cartographers might have left charts pointing to realms beyond any known horizon. The whispering Atlantean statues. In the depths of a drowned plaza they stand as if listening. Beneath curtains of coral and drifting sand, the figures rise from the seafloor in solemn ranks, their faces tilted slightly toward one another, their mouths parted in frozen breath. Divers describe the scene as a meeting interrupted mid-sentence, a council of stone caught in silence. Yet the stillness is deceptive. When the currents move through the ruined city, a low vibration hums across the seabed, a tone too structured to be random, too steady to be chance. Each figure bears a precision that defies erosion. Despite centuries beneath salt and pressure, their surfaces retain a glass-like sheen, as if shielded by some lost chemical process or fused under intense heat. A few statues are hewn from basalt of unnatural purity, while others show traces of metallic flecks consistent with orichalcum, the legendary copper-gold alloy once said to adorn the walls of Atlantis. Scans performed by autonomous submersibles have revealed hollow channels carved deep within several torsos, twisting upward through the necks and mouths. Engineers who examined the data concluded that the internal geometry resembles a resonant cavity, a design more typical of instruments than idols. When the sea passes through these hollow spaces, sound emerges. It is not a voice in the human sense, but a resonance that seems to move through the listener's bones rather than the ear. In 2001, during a joint Portuguese-American expedition near the Azores Plateau, hydrophones captured faint tonal emissions that repeated at regular intervals. The pattern, analysed months later, revealed harmonic ratios similar to those found in modern acoustic chambers. To the untrained ear, the sound was little more than a murmur. To those who listened closely, it felt like a whisper from the deep, too deliberate, too constant, to be dismissed as turbulence. Historians have noted that sound has long carried sacred significance. In the Egyptian temple of Karnak, corridors were engineered so that whispers could travel across impossible distances. In the Andean complex of Chavindahuantar, stone ducks transformed human speech into disembodied roars that echoed through ceremonial chambers. And near ancient Thebes, the colossi of Memnon once sang at dawn, their granite surfaces vibrating as the desert heat rose. Across cultures, from the Nile to the Andes, ancient builders shaped architecture not only to house the divine, but to make it audible. Against that legacy, the Atlantean statues seem less like myth, and more like the next link in an unbroken chain of acoustic genius. If these statues once stood on land, their alignment was no accident. Sonar mapping shows that their arrangement forms a sweeping curve, mirroring celestial coordinates that correspond to Lyra and Cygnus, constellations often tied to myths of descent from the heavens. The arc also follows a fault line of unusual magnetic intensity, a place where compass needles drift without cause. Geophysicists who studied the data found that the statue's orientation would have optimized airflow from prevailing winds if exposed above sea level, suggesting that the same currents that once whistled through them now flow as ocean tides. What was once the sound of air through stone may now be the breath of the sea. In Himalayan folklore, there are stories of statues that spoke before calamity. In Nepal's Mustang Valley, an 11th century chronicle describes monastery effigies that emitted tones during an earthquake, their hollow interiors resonating as if alive. Tibetan oral traditions tell of sculpted guardians that sang warnings before avalanches or storms. Scholars have proposed that these myths preserve fragments of ancient acoustic practices, knowledge carried inland by survivors of coastal floods. If the Atlantean refugees reached the high plateaus, they may have carried not only memory but technique, recreating the language of resonance in stone sanctuaries far from the sea. Modern recordings deepen the mystery rather than solve it. Hydroacoustic sensors deployed during subsequent expeditions detected tones below 20 Hz, infrasound frequencies known to cause unease, dizziness, and vivid impressions of presence. When these frequencies were digitally accelerated, researchers noticed patterns consistent with harmonic scaling, intervals so precise they could not be natural. Some suggested piezoelectric reactions from quartz veins within the statues, others speculated on magnetostrictive effects produced by submerged metals. Yet none of these explanations account for the rhythmic modulation that persists, rising and falling as though guided by intention. Perhaps the statues were not built to speak but to remember. In some ancient philosophies, sound was not merely a phenomenon but a record, a way to store energy, knowledge, even emotion. If the builders of Atlantis understood this, they may have designed their monuments as vast resonant archives, encoding memory within vibration itself. Each tone released by the sea could be the ghost of a civilization's last breath, replayed endlessly across the ages. The ocean in that sense becomes not a destroyer but a conductor, a living medium through which their final words still travel. Even now, in sonar images and diver logs, their presence endures. Expeditions return with clearer maps and sharper scans, yet the essence of the mystery remains untouched. The statues stand as they always have, silent in form, alive in sound, a meeting frozen in time, yet still somehow in conversation. Those who have heard the hum say it changes with the tides, as if responding to something unseen or remembering something long gone. Within the stillness of the deep, the statues seem to wait, as if the next breath of the ocean might finally complete the words they never finished. Atlantean healing pools. Far above the plains of the Indus, where the air thins and the stones glisten with frost, there are places where the earth itself seems to breathe. Between folds of Himalayan rock, vapour rises from pools that glow faintly at dawn, their surfaces rippling with colours not found in ordinary light. Locals claim the waters heal wounds that medicine cannot reach, as though the mountain had preserved within its depths an understanding far older than the world that surrounds it. Monks who live near these remote valleys speak of the waters not as miracles, but as remnants of a forgotten discipline, one that joined vibration, metal, and breath into a single harmony. They describe tones that resonate through the stone chambers, shifting the temperature of the pools without fire or flame. In their language, the waters are called Thigle Norbu, or the jewels that sing, a name whispered through generations of caretakers who believe the springs were created, not born. Geologists studying these regions have long noted their unusual chemistry. The springs contain rare isotopic blends of lithium and boron, and their electromagnetic signatures fluctuate with the movement of deep crustal faults, forming rhythmic pulses measurable even from satellites. Some readings have suggested that the temperature rises and falls in precise intervals, unlike natural geothermal systems, as though a mechanism far beneath the surface still regulates their flow. In the archives of Ladakh and western Tibet, aged manuscripts speak of luminous waters where metals were said to soften and reform without melting. The texts describe how acolytes would submerge copper or gold discs into the pools while chanting low harmonic tones, causing patterns to bloom across the metal surfaces like frost forming in reverse. These records, though poetic, align with the modern discovery of piezoelectric minerals along the same fault lines, stones capable of producing charge under vibration. Across the Himalayas, researchers have identified several hot springs exhibiting faint rhythmic light emissions at night, recorded through long-exposure photography. These phenomena, sometimes dismissed as natural bioluminescence or ionized gases, display cyclical timing consistent with the Earth's geomagnetic fluctuations. A joint 2018 study by the Indian Institute of Geomagnetism and the University of Tokyo noted that such fluctuations peak during certain lunar phases, suggesting that gravitational forces might modulate the mineral charge within these geothermal systems. Though the mechanism remains speculative, the correlation between magnetic variance and visible luminescence adds another layer to the enigma surrounding the so-called healing waters. Researchers who study Atlantean mythology find the parallels striking. Accounts from the dialogues of Plato and later esoteric traditions mention temples where water was infused with light and sound, used to renew both body and mind. Descriptions of radiant pools surrounded by crystalline conduits mirror the Himalayan sites almost precisely, leading some to wonder whether both traditions recall fragments of a shared origin. If Atlantis existed, its knowledge of resonance and mineral conductivity might have been carried in fragments to the peaks of Asia by survivors who rebuilt in silence. Modern imaging technology has revealed yet more peculiarities. Thermal cameras detect shifting shapes beneath the surfaces, lattice-like formations that appear and dissolve in symmetrical patterns, sometimes accompanied by tonal vibrations just beyond human hearing. Spectrographic analysis recorded subtle variations in frequency, producing geometric forms resembling cymatic patterns known to arise when sound moves through liquid. Scientists hesitate to attribute such order to chance, though the mechanism remains unidentified. Within Tibetan cosmology, the idea of singing water holds deep symbolic weight. It represents the unity between sound and matter, a belief that vibration itself can purify or transform. Ancient texts from the Bon and early Buddhist traditions describe hidden springs used in ritual healings, where the sick were immersed amid chants designed to match the frequency of the stones around them. These rituals, though spiritual in language, reflect an intuitive grasp of resonance similar to the speculative technologies ascribed to Atlantis. In a secluded valley near Lake Manasarova, pilgrims still visit a small spring said to cure ailments when approached in silence. Modern testing revealed its waters contain high concentrations of dissolved ormus elements, a term used in alternative chemistry for monoatomic gold and platinum group metals. Though mainstream science remains cautious about such claims, the presence of rare metallic isotopes has been verified, some of which exhibit weak superconductive properties when cooled to near zero temperatures. If the ancients understood how to amplify such elements through sound or pressure, they may have engineered natural conductors for energy transfer, a possibility that continues to intrigue geophysicists studying Himalayan mineralogy. If the Himalayan pools were shaped by design, their builders must have understood the convergence of geology and acoustics in a way that transcends recorded science. They would have known how to harness magnetic flux from deep earth metals, how to balance charge through mineral veins, and how to sustain energy without depletion. Such knowledge suggests a philosophy that blurred the border between medicine and alchemy, between healing and transformation, a synthesis that treated the body as a vessel of tuned frequencies rather than flesh alone. Recent expeditions have extended the investigation beyond the mountains. Seafloor surveys along the Andaman Trench have uncovered mineral compositions eerily similar to those found near the Himalayan springs, Submerged ridges contain trace elements in identical ratios, suggesting a geological link that predates the current continental arrangement. Some theorists propose that the Himalayan pools may be the highland remnants of a once interconnected system, a global network of energy wells now divided by cataclysm and time. The mystery deepens with each discovery. Whether these waters are natural marvels or engineered relics, they hint at a forgotten comprehension of life's underlying rhythm, a science that merged consciousness with the physical world. The mountains keep their silence, yet the pools continue to shimmer, untouched by the centuries that have passed around them. And in the quiet shimmer of those hidden waters, the pulse of an ancient intelligence may still be waiting to be recognized. The vanishing Atlantean bridges. At the fading edges of forgotten lands, the earth stretches outward, yearning for what it once embraced. In these places, the sea does not end abruptly. It fades through sandbars, reefs, and stony ridges that curve into the horizon before dissolving beneath the tide. Satellite imagery has revealed faint traces of submerged landforms between continents that appear too linear, too evenly spaced to be natural. Among them are formations stretching from the Azores toward the mid-Atlantic ridge, a sequence of elevations that some claim once connected distant lands. In certain tidal maps of the Atlantic, pale ridges appear where no island should exist, faint threads connecting continents that science insists have long drifted apart. Oceanographers studying sonar data off the coasts of Madeira and Cape Verde have identified narrow shelves that rise unexpectedly from depths exceeding 3,000 meters. Their composition, basalt mixed with compacted sediment, suggests neither volcanic eruption nor tectonic uplift alone. Instead, the structures seem layered, as though built through repeated deposition and erosion, forming elongated pathways that once lay above the surface. These features are dismissed by most as remnants of shifting plates or underwater fault scarps, yet their patterns resemble ancient causeways more than geological fractures. Mariners of the early modern age spoke of shallows that appeared and vanished overnight, claiming their ships crossed ghostly platforms that trembled beneath the keel. Portuguese navigators recorded one such encounter in a 16th century logbook, describing a line of stone rising from the sea like a sleeping serpent somewhere between the Azores and the Sargasso Sea. These were not isolated tales. Similar reports surfaced throughout the 1700s, leading cartographers to mark temporary land masses that later disappeared from all maps. Among these reports, one formation near the Azores remains the most enduring, a lattice of stone rising briefly from the deep before receding again into shadow. Modern surveys by deep-sea exploration vessels have confirmed the existence of a structure roughly 40 kilometers long, composed of polygonal slabs stacked with unnatural precision. Some scientists argue that they result from a process called columnar jointing, where volcanic rock cools into hexagonal patterns, yet the uniformity here is unmatched. The formation has earned a quiet reputation among marine archaeologists as the path that moves, for sonar echoes sometimes return its shape, and other times nothing at all. Seafloor imaging of this region has revealed lines too precise to be natural, their geometry echoing the measured intent of architecture rather than accident. Certain segments even curve in gentle arcs that match astronomical bearings rather than tectonic ones, as if the bridge were oriented towards celestial events rather than continental positions. Recent multibeam mapping by the Oceanographic Institute of Lisbon found traces of what could be pylons or support bases spaced at equal intervals. Their density and alignment suggest deliberate reinforcement, yet the material seems to absorb rather than reflect radar pulses, complicating direct analysis. Geophysicists studying these ridges note their uncanny alignment with fracture zones that extend toward both the Caribbean and the Bay of Bengal. The possibility of a once continuous structure spanning multiple oceanic basins defies accepted models of plate separation. Intriguingly, magnetic anomaly maps show faint symmetry across these zones, indicating that the crust beneath them cooled simultaneously, a geological impossibility if they were formed by slow drift. Though no one can prove such engineering existed, the concept mirrors ancient traditions that speak of harmonic architecture, structures meant to resonate with the Earth itself. In the sands of the Maldives, similar arcs of coral and limestone form patterns so deliberate that early explorers called them bridges of the drowned. Archaeological dives in the region have uncovered platforms buried under layers of marine growth, constructed from quarried coral blocks joined with mineral compounds uncommon to the area. These traces, though separated by thousands of kilometers from the Atlantic, bear the same geometric precision. Coral analysis indicates they predate known civilizations, possibly surviving from an era when sea levels were far lower. A time when coastlines now submerged may have been linked by passages across shallow seas. Ancient texts seem to preserve faint recollections of such structures. Roads between worlds described not as myth, but as memory. The writings of Plato, often cited for their mention of Atlantis, speak of a path of the sun connecting the outer and inner seas. Egyptian inscriptions refer to the walkways of light, while early Sanskrit records from the Indian subcontinent describe stone bands that vanished under the waves after a great upheaval. None of these accounts use the word bridge, yet all share the same image, a crossing that united lands now divided by the ocean. Modern researchers revisiting these accounts have found a strange consistency. The bridges were never said to collapse, only to fade. Legends from the Basque Coast tell of people who walked across the sea before the waters remembered themselves. In the Maldives, the oral tradition claims that during certain tides, travellers could still see the path glimmer beneath the surface, not as ruin, but as reflection. These stories resist classification as myth because they lack the expected drama of destruction. Instead, they describe disappearance by withdrawal, as though the structures retreated from visibility rather than being broken apart. If these formations were indeed engineered, they may represent a technology unlike anything the modern world has conceived, a kind of architecture that obeyed the rhythm of the planet itself. Some have theorized they could be constructed from materials designed to respond to pressure and vibration, shifting density as the ocean changed. Others wonder if the bridges acted as conduits of energy, stabilizing planetary currents now lost to history. Whether these phenomena are remnants of design or nature's imitation of purpose remains the central mystery. When the ocean turns quiet enough, some claim you can still sense the echo of passage, as though something, somewhere continues to cross where no bridge remains. Atlantean energy pylons. Where sunlight can no longer reach, enormous stone forms stand unmoved, their purpose buried with the age that built them. Rising from the seabed like petrified sentinels, these formations bear geometric precision so exact that even erosion has failed to disguise their deliberate design. When sonar scans first revealed the pattern of these towers, many dismissed them as freaks of geology. From the Azores Plateau to the Caribbean Basin, the pattern repeats, monuments resting upon magnetic intersections where the Earth's own power seems to converge. Oceanographic instruments have detected magnetic fluctuations surrounding some of these sites, irregular pulses that rise and fall as though responding to something deep within the crust. In the shallower depths, divers encounter tower walls smoother than coral, carved with delicate spirals that ascend in deliberate sequence. The stone itself, when sampled, often contains traces of orichalcum, a rare alloy once mentioned by ancient Greek texts as the metal of Atlantis, said to shine like red gold. Laboratory analysis of recovered fragments found unusual crystalline inclusions that conduct small electrical charges when exposed to salt water, an ability not found in any known natural formation. Some scientists have speculated these inclusions may have formed through intense pressure or heat, but none can explain why they appear in symmetrical arrays within the stone. What deepens the mystery further is the alignment of the pylons. Many form linear sequences that point toward magnetic north, though they rest upon tectonic plates that have drifted significantly since their submersion. When mapped in their presumed original orientation, they appear to trace complex geometric arrangements resembling the ancient flower of life pattern, an emblem found in Egyptian temples and sacred Greek geometry. This recurring alignment suggests an awareness of planetary energy grids, the so-called ley lines, which ancient civilizations were said to harness long before the advent of modern technology. Throughout history, legends have persisted of towers that gathered or transmitted the Earth's hidden power. In Mesopotamia, ziggurats were believed to bridge the heavens and the ground, serving as conduits of divine force. In Mesoamerica, similar myths surrounded the stepped pyramids of Teotihuacan, whose name means the place where gods were made. The Atlantean pylons, if indeed they predate these cultures, may represent the origin of such architectural symbolism, structures not built for worship but for resonance, designed to draw energy from the very fabric of the planet itself. Theorists studying their possible function have proposed that the pylons once operated like immense resonators, amplifying vibrational frequencies from beneath the crust. The concept is not without precedent. Nikola Tesla's experiments in wireless energy transmission in the early 20th century aimed to use the Earth's natural resonance for global power distribution. The similarity of principle, if not of technology, has been enough to revive speculation that the Atlanteans had discovered something comparable thousands of years earlier. Under prolonged observation, the pylons exhibit a pattern that defies coincidence. Electrical instruments placed within their vicinity record spontaneous bursts of static that disrupt nearby magnetic fields. Marine biologists studying nearby ecosystems have noted unusual migratory patterns in fish and cetaceans, which seem to circle or avoid the towers depending on the time of year. The anomalies could be dismissed as a coincidence, but they persist across multiple regions and observation periods, suggesting the pylons continue to interact with their environment in ways that remain poorly understood. Among the most enigmatic sites lies near the submerged ridge off Bimini, where divers discovered what appear to be toppled pylons forming a straight avenue across the seabed. This so-called Bimini Road has long been debated. Some regard it as a natural beach rock formation, others as a remnant of human construction. However, recent magnetic surveys recorded fluctuations that correlate precisely with the stone's positioning, an unlikely occurrence if the alignment were accidental. Nearby samples show traces of magnetite-rich sediments that appear to have fused at unnaturally high temperatures, as though the structures were once subjected to a concentrated energy field. Historical accounts lend an eerie resonance to these findings. Plato's descriptions of Atlantis mention temples lined with orichalcum and a central power source that illuminated the island by night. The ancient philosopher never described the mechanism, but his words speak of a fire that did not consume, perhaps a reference to energy drawn from the earth itself. Later esoteric traditions, including Hermetic and Theosophical writings, repeated the idea that Atlantean technology harnessed cosmic forces through massive crystalline conductors. Whether allegory or memory, such stories echo the physical evidence now emerging from the deep. In recent decades, attempts to model the pylon's possible energy resonance using computational simulations have yielded surprising results. When their placement is recreated in a virtual electromagnetic field, interference patterns emerge that focus energy at nodal points, precisely where certain pylons are found in reality. Physicists caution that the correlation does not prove design, yet the coincidence continues to unsettle those who study it. To imagine an ancient civilization capable of shaping natural forces on such a scale challenges every assumption about human technological development. The most haunting aspect of the Atlantean pylons, however, lies not in what they reveal but in what they conceal. Beneath some of the tallest towers, sonar imaging has detected hollow cavities that extend deep into the rock. These chambers, though unreachable, appear to contain reflective material unlike the surrounding seabed. Some researchers suspect metallic deposits, others suggest voids created by thermal collapse. Yet there is a quiet consensus among divers who have felt the faint vibration of the water within those spaces, that something continues to move, a low-frequency rhythm echoing like a heartbeat beneath the sea. Whatever power once moved through them may still hum, unheard, beneath the weight of time. The Atlantean sun mirrors. Shifting bands of light ripple across the ocean floor, bending in ways no current can explain. In the depths near the Azores Plateau, where silt drifts like a pale fog and daylight should fade to nothing, divers have reported flashes that pulse with unnatural rhythm. What they glimpsed were not metallic wrecks or shards of glass, but vast reflective slabs half buried in sediment, their edges still straight, their surfaces so smooth that even under centuries of erosion, they returned light in perfect lines. These submerged mirrors appear to form deliberate patterns, positioned as if to catch the rising sun long after their civilization had been swallowed by the sea. Early sonar imaging revealed planes of high reflectivity arranged in deliberate symmetry. Each segment was tilted at an identical angle, creating a geometric field rather than a chaotic scatter. When researchers mapped their orientation, a peculiar consistency emerged. They all faced a precise bearing corresponding to the path of the equinox sun. This was no random alignment of natural minerals, but a silent order preserved beneath the waves. Analysis of small recovered fragments showed surfaces polished to optical precision. Microscopic study revealed parallel striations similar to those produced by abrasive techniques known from Egyptian and Minoan craftsmanship, where sand and quartz were used to achieve near-mirror finishes. Chemical tests detected traces of fused quartz, copper, and a silicate compound resembling obsidian, a combination unknown in natural form. Some historians compared the samples to the Messenian bronze mirrors found at Tiryns and Pylos, yet even those famed artifacts lack the purity of polish displayed by these submerged plates. From Egypt's solar temples to the parabolic bronze discs of ancient Greece, humanity's oldest builders understood the power of the sun. Chinese records describe dragon mirrors made from burnished bronze to summon heat and heal illness, while Roman accounts speak of heliostats used to redirect light into dark interiors. The mirrors found beneath the Atlantic seem to stand within this lineage, yet their scale surpasses every known example, as if they were designed not for the human eye but for the heavens themselves. Should these submerged plates have once risen above the waves, their purpose might have extended far beyond the simple play of light. Archaeologists have long debated whether they formed part of a vast solar complex capable of channeling light into energy or ritual power. Some researchers imagine they worked as enormous concentrators, gathering sunlight and directing it toward crystalline receptors, an ancient form of solar furnace capable of generating both light and heat without combustion. The surfaces themselves may have served as portals of illumination, translating the sun's brilliance into something that sustained both life and ceremony. When plotted by latitude and orientation, several mirror sites align precisely with solar solstice angles. Computer simulations show that if raised to their original elevation, the reflective planes would have captured light simultaneously across thousands of meters, creating an unbroken corridor of radiance. The geometry bears uncanny similarity to the alignments of Stonehenge, Nabta Playa, and Chaco Canyon, where ancient peoples recorded the solar year in architecture. Yet here, the precision suggests a technological rather than symbolic purpose, a kind of synchronization with celestial mechanics that required both astronomical knowledge and materials beyond the reach of known antiquity. Even in darkness, the stones release faint traces of luminescence under ultraviolet light. Laboratory experiments confirm that certain calcite-rich minerals can store photons and emit them slowly, a phenomenon known as thermoluminescence. But the glow observed within the Atlantean fragments lingers longer than any natural sample tested under identical conditions. Some scientists propose that centuries of compression and seawater exposure may have altered the crystalline lattice, allowing it to retain solar energy in microscopic chambers. Others see it as a lingering echo of a process once engineered intentionally, a material designed to absorb, store, and emit light as part of a forgotten system of energy. Old writings that speak of a city of light often describe its brilliance as unbearable to mortal eyes. Plato's account of Atlantis tells of orichalcum walls that shone like fire and temples crowned with reflective metals that gleamed from horizon to horizon. In Egyptian mythology, the god Ra travelled through mirrored gates each dawn, his rebirth ensured by reflection. The Greeks revered Helios, the charioteer of the sun, whose power could be directed by polished bronze. These myths, when viewed through the lens of archaeological discovery, may not be purely symbolic. The Atlantean mirrors could represent the physical manifestation of those divine metaphors, an effort to capture divinity in measurable form. Optical engineers today have attempted to recreate the curvature of the mirror fragments through digital modelling. When reconstructed virtually, the segments behave like parabolic concentrators, capable of focusing light into a single intense point. The precision necessary to achieve this effect would have required mathematical understanding equivalent to contemporary optical design. Even minor imperfections alter focal behaviour, yet the Atlantean geometry remains consistent throughout recovered data. These findings have renewed questions about the technological ceiling of ancient civilizations. If such control of light was possible millennia ago, It suggests a scientific tradition that vanished entirely from recorded history. Light, when trapped, becomes memory. Within those mirrors may still linger traces of the final sunrise that passed over Atlantis before the sea reclaimed it. The silence surrounding them feels almost deliberate, as though they were built not simply to harness the sun, but to preserve its echo long after their makers were gone. Every glint that escapes the ocean's surface now feels like a signal that has travelled too far and too long to be random, a whisper of illumination from a civilization that once shaped daylight itself. If the mirrors ever catch the sun again, the ocean may no longer be able to hide what they were built to reveal. Atlantean musical machines. It begins not with light or movement, but with a sound that should not exist. In regions of the Atlantic long abandoned to the silence of pressure and stone, faint tonal vibrations have been recorded where no current, creature, or geological fault should produce rhythm. Each pulse seems to travel through solid matter, echoing through chambers carved by hands that understood both architecture and harmony. For those who have listened closely, the ocean itself appears to hum with memory. Marine sensors first built to study seismic drift began registering rhythmic tones during expeditions along the mid-Atlantic ridge. Their instruments, calibrated to detect tectonic tremors, instead captured sequences of sound resembling harmonic intervals, the same ratios found in organized music. But repeated surveys confirmed that the tones emanated from fixed points deep within a trench, marked by symmetrical structures. The data suggested something far more deliberate than geological chance, as though the stones themselves were singing back to the machines that sought to measure them. When divers traced the signal, they found what appeared to be corridors of worked stone, arranged in precise resonant geometry. The walls, smoothed as though by tools designed to shape both form and sound, produced an echo that neither dispersed nor faded. Some chambers amplified even the smallest vibration. A struck tool would generate a low note that swelled and sustained, moving through the surrounding passages like the slow breath of a hidden instrument. These were not mere halls or tombs, they were sound chambers, engineered to turn vibration into experience. Traces of such acoustic mastery can be found across the ancient world, suggesting a continuity of lost knowledge. The Hypogeum of Malta, dated to the Neolithic era, was constructed with chambers that resonate perfectly at 110 Hz, a frequency known to affect human brainwave activity. In Peru, the galleries of Chavín de Huántar carry sound through hidden canals, creating deep, disorienting tones that shift with the movement of air. Each site demonstrates a relationship between stone, sound, and consciousness, a triad repeated now in the drowned ruins of the Atlantic. High in the Himalayas, far from any sea, a similar reverence for vibration endures. Tibetan monks have long practiced overtone chanting, producing multiple notes simultaneously by manipulating resonance within the throat and chest. When measured with modern instruments, these chants reveal frequencies capable of shifting air pressure in confined spaces. In monasteries like Drepung and Tashi Lunpo, such harmonics are believed to align the body with universal rhythm, a belief mirrored in ancient Sanskrit texts describing sound as the foundation of creation. These traditions, separated by continents and ages, seem to echo a single principle, that the world itself responds to the right vibration. Researchers examining the submerged Atlantean formations discovered that their internal dimensions follow harmonic ratios identical to those used in musical scales. Chambers are lines with intervals corresponding to the fifth, fourth, and octave, the same relationships that define balance and consonance in human hearing. The precision of these proportions suggests intention rather than coincidence. The implication is that whoever designed them understood sound not as art or ritual alone, but as an active force capable of shaping matter. Geological analysis of the ruins revealed veins of quartz and magnetite woven into the stone, minerals known for their ability to conduct and transform energy through vibration. Quartz, in particular, exhibits piezoelectric properties. It generates an electrical charge when compressed or struck by sound waves. Magnetite, sensitive to magnetic fields, can amplify oscillations in nearby material. Together, they form a natural resonance system that responds dynamically to vibration. It is possible that these substances were chosen deliberately, forming the core of an acoustic machine built to channel, store, or even modulate energy in ways still beyond modern replication. Across civilizations, myths have long described sound as the origin of existence. In Hindu cosmology, the universe begins with a single tone, Om, the vibration that brought order from the void. In ancient Greek philosophy, Pythagoras spoke of the music of the spheres, the celestial harmony that binds the cosmos through proportion and resonance. Even the Hebrew and Christian traditions hold that creation began with a spoken word. Within these symbolic frameworks, sound is both origin and instrument, a bridge between thought and matter. If the builders of Atlantis shared this understanding, their machines may have been designed not simply to produce sound, but to commune with it. Contemporary tests and controlled chambers now suggest how these spaces once spoke through vibration and tone. When controlled frequencies were projected into certain sections of the Atlantean ruins, sensitive instruments recorded feedback matching 432 Hz, a tone historically revered for its supposed alignment with natural resonance and planetary vibration. At this frequency, water itself forms symmetrical standing waves, and materials such as quartz respond with harmonic amplification. The idea that these underwater halls could be tuned to this frequency suggests a system designed for more than ceremony. They may once have transformed sound into power, merging physical and metaphysical principles into a single, resonant technology. When viewed as instruments of vibration instead of sanctuaries of light, their architecture begins to speak an entirely different language. Perhaps they acted as stabilizers for seismic forces, harmonizing pressure through controlled resonance. Or perhaps they served as instruments of healing, aligning the human body with the rhythms of the earth. Whatever their purpose, the silence that now fills them feels less like decay than dormancy, a pause in a melody too vast to measure, waiting for the moment when it might once again be heard. Perhaps the last sound of Atlantis never faded at all, but waits beneath the waves for an ear still attuned to its memory. The Labyrinths of Atlantis. The first explorers to trace the grid-like stone corridors spoke of direction dissolving within minutes. Compasses spun with erratic rhythm, light refracted strangely against walls that seemed to lean without moving, and the ocean's current itself appeared to twist along unseen boundaries. What began as simple mapping dives turned into a slow surrender to confusion, as though the structure had been built to erase one's sense of orientation. Those who returned described the experience not as navigation through ruins, but as entering a living design, one that resisted being understood. Angles that should have met cleanly instead bent in ways no compass could justify. Walls that looked parallel from one perspective curved slightly when measured from another, giving the impression of corridors that expanded and contracted with movement. Divers marking coordinates found their lines forming irregular spirals, leading them back toward their starting points, even when they thought they had turned away. Some suggested this distortion was the result of shifting tectonic plates, yet others noted the precision of the cuts, the way the stones fitted together so perfectly that even the finest probe could not find the seams. Among the debris surrounding the corridors, archaeologists recovered tablets etched with spiral designs strikingly similar to those found in Minoan sanctuaries on Crete. The resemblance is too deliberate to be a coincidence. Concentric designs looping inward toward a single hidden chamber, a pattern mirrored in labyrinth imagery across early Mediterranean civilizations. Archaeologists have noted that these motifs predate the myth of King Minos itself, implying an origin even older, passed down through lost cultural memory. It is possible that what the Greeks later reimagined as a myth of the Minotaur was born from stories of a real labyrinth, one that lay far deeper than any palace could stand. Across continents, ancient builders used mazes as instruments of passage, from the Egyptian labyrinth of Hawara with its 12 vast courts, to the hidden walkways of Ladak's monastic complexes designed to disorient initiates before ritual meditation. In each culture, the labyrinth was less a prison than a path of transformation, meant to strip away certainty through confusion. The Atlantean examples, however, extend this concept beyond human scale. Their passageways descend through levels arranged in repeating geometric ratios, forming patterns visible only through sonar imaging, complex spirals too vast to walk, but clearly constructed with intent. When the chambers were scanned, magnetic gradients shifted unpredictably, suggesting that the architecture itself redirected the Earth's field. Instruments placed near the stone junctions experienced alternating surges and voids of magnetism, creating oscillations that interfered with compasses, recording equipment, and even the diver's internal balance. Scientists who examined the readings noted that the distortions mirrored the behavior of superconductive materials exposed to geomagnetic stress, though no such materials have been confirmed in these ancient stones. Whatever force guided their alignment seemed to rely on properties not yet fully measurable. Teams who entered the preserved sections described a disquieting effect, the sense that the walls were subtly closing in, though their measurements never changed. Visibility diminished the deeper they moved, not from silt or shadow, but from a pervasive haze that seemed to absorb light rather than scatter it. Voices carried too clearly across the flooded halls, echoing back from impossible angles, creating phantom responses in tones that did not match the speakers. One diver recorded the sound of footsteps reverberating through solid stone long after his team had stopped moving. Some interpret the labyrinths as reflections of inner experience, where movement through uncertainty mirrors the passage toward enlightenment. Their designs echo the Mandalic structures found in ancient Himalayan texts, where circular pathways represented the process of inward awakening. In that context, Atlantis may have been not only a city but an idea, a civilization built on the belief that enlightenment required disorientation. The labyrinth, in this sense, was not a structure to be escaped, but a passage meant to dissolve the self. Strangely, the symmetry of their corridors aligns with no known human blueprint, following instead the proportions of celestial mapping and wave resonance. The distances between central nodes correspond precisely to the harmonic frequencies of standing sound waves in water, as if the entire construction were tuned to the ocean's vibration. Modern acoustic experiments reveal that certain tones, when directed through the mapped coordinates, produce faint resonant hums detectable even through sediment layers. These harmonics fade instantly when the sound stops, leaving no trace of their origin, only the knowledge that the maze responds. Subsequent mapping revealed interlocking routes stretching beyond recorded boundaries, their alignment traced to fault lines beneath the Atlantic crust. Geological models show that the labyrinths may follow the same rift zones where the seafloor spreads apart, as though the builders anticipated the Earth's slow drift and embedded their design into the planet's living structure. Some of these routes extend toward regions now buried under kilometers of basaltic flow, their entrances sealed by volcanic activity. Yet their geometric precision remains visible in satellite imaging, faint outlines of corridors no natural process could explain. When later expeditions attempted to follow the same route, they found only blank walls, as though the structure had quietly rearranged its own geometry. Photographs taken on one expedition show smooth, unbroken walls, where earlier images revealed open passageways, leaving investigators to question whether their instruments had malfunctioned, or whether the labyrinth itself could shift with perception. Each new attempt to map its full extent only deepens the uncertainty, suggesting that what lies within those walls may be more than a ruin. Some believe the labyrinth was never built to be escaped, but to remind us that Atlantis was never truly lost. Atlantean metal that defies rust. When the divers first raised the object from the sediment, its surface caught the light as though it had been polished that morning. Centuries of saltwater pressure and chemical decay had left the surrounding coral blackened and brittle, yet the metal itself shimmered with a steady, impossible luster. Even under scrutiny, the alloy showed no signs of pitting, flaking, or oxidation, presenting a contradiction to everything known about submerged metals. It seemed to resist the fundamental processes that corrode iron, bronze, or steel, standing as a silent testament to engineering far beyond the reach of modern science. Under laboratory analysis, the alloy revealed no trace of oxidation, even at its molecular boundaries. Electron microscopy failed to detect microscopic fissures where corrosion should have begun, and spectroscopy showed elemental combinations not fully recognized in contemporary metallurgical records. Attempts to replicate its resilience by blending platinum, titanium, and trace amounts of rare earth metals yielded only partial success, with samples succumbing to rust after decades instead of centuries. The Atlantean fragments, by contrast, remained perfectly intact, as if the passage of time itself had no claim over them. The phenomenon recalls the ancient accounts of metals said to shine eternally, from the orichalcum Plato, described in his dialogues, to the iron pillar that still stands untarnished in Delhi. Each of these artifacts defied conventional corrosion for reasons that remain partially unexplained. The Delhi pillar, for instance, owes its preservation to a rare combination of phosphorus content and climatic factors, yet the Atlantean specimens far surpass anything documented on land. Unlike the pillar, which rests in a dry environment, these metals survive at great oceanic depths, surrounded by salt pressure and a biological stew that would ordinarily devour any ordinary alloy within decades. When researchers applied controlled electric fields, the metal emitted a faint resonance, neither magnetic nor acoustic but measurable with sensitive equipment. Small oscillations could be detected across the surface, barely perceptible yet consistent, hinting at an intrinsic response to external energy. Thermal imaging revealed that the alloy absorbed and redistributed heat at a rate unlike any known material, neither warming nor cooling as expected, as if it maintained a subtle equilibrium independent of its environment. These anomalies have yet to be explained, suggesting the Atlanteans may have understood physical laws in ways we're only beginning to glimpse. Cultures across history treated incorruptible metals as divine gifts, crafting idols, ceremonial weapons, and reliquaries believed to be impervious to time. The Egyptians, for instance, prized meteoric iron as metal of the gods, using it sparingly in jewelry and ritual implements. In the Americas, certain pre-Columbian cultures worshipped gold and alloyed metals for their supposed immortality, combining aesthetics with spiritual significance. In each case, the material's endurance became a conduit for cultural meaning, linking the physical world to the eternal. The Atlantean examples, however, suggest function as well as reverence, a metal built not only to impress but to endure, to last as a working component of a technology long vanished. Geologists studying the surrounding strata proposed a far more mundane explanation. Exposure to volcanic gases and mineral-rich sediments could have infused the metal with compounds that retard corrosion. Analyses show traces of manganese, chromium and nickel in ratios far beyond typical natural alloys, combined with rare silicate inclusions that might protect against chemical breakdown. Yet the sheer uniformity and purity of the metal, free from the microfractures seen in naturally formed alloys, defies simple geochemical reasoning. The composition is precise, intentional, and beyond any natural process known to occur on the ocean floor. Yet the discovery of matching samples thousands of miles apart shattered any simple geological theory. Divers and oceanographers have retrieved similar fragments near the Bimini Ridge, the Azores Plateau, and even the Caribbean Basin, all showing near-identical elemental profiles. This distribution implies either a networked civilization capable of producing and transporting high-grade alloys over vast distances, or a standardized material unknown to modern science. The similarity of each piece extends beyond chemical composition to microstructure, suggesting a level of metallurgical knowledge that borders on technological sophistication far ahead of its time. Even now, the metal resists every attempt to age it, as though decay itself cannot recognize its form. Experiments with concentrated acids, saltwater immersion, and high heat have produced no significant change, only faint, almost imperceptible oscillations in the surface that hint at dormant activity. Some researchers speculate that the material may contain nanoscale properties designed to maintain molecular stability indefinitely, while others allow themselves the quiet possibility that the Atlanteans discovered a principle of material preservation lost to history. Whatever the truth, the alloy remains a frozen secret, a fragment of a civilization that mastered permanence. Every fragment raised from the deep feels heavy with intention, as though the Atlanteans meant it to endure as both tool and message. Its surfaces are smooth but patterned with faint etchings, too subtle to have been purely decorative, suggesting instructions, symbolic meaning, or even coded energy channels. In this respect, the metal parallels the intricate stonework, acoustic halls, and reflective mirrors found in other Atlantean ruins, reinforcing the notion that the civilization approached technology, art, and science as inseparable facets of a single unified understanding. Recent isotopic studies have revealed traces of rare isotopes, including neodymium and samarium, in ratios that suggest deliberate alloying rather than natural occurrence, hinting at knowledge of elemental behavior far beyond what was thought possible in antiquity. Microscopic analysis also uncovered lattice structures unusually regular for metals exposed to extreme pressure, resembling engineered crystals more than conventional metallurgy. In some fragments, researchers noted faint striations along grain boundaries, possibly indicating a controlled cooling or vibration technique designed to stabilize molecular arrangements. Such features imply that the Atlanteans may have developed processes akin to modern material science, achieving resilience not through luck or geology, but through sophisticated manipulation of atomic and crystalline properties. What was once forged to outlast the sea may still remember the hands that shaped it. The Atlantean Eye of the Sea. From satellite imagery, a perfect sphere emerged, its shadow casting a strange symmetry across the undulating seabed. The shape appeared impossibly smooth, yet subtly etched with grooves that suggested deliberate patterning rather than random erosion. Sonar mapping revealed that its diameter spanned nearly 30 meters, a scale unmatched by any known submerged artifact. Yet each curve and indentation adhered to a precise geometric order. The structure seemed to float between art and engineering, a singular object whose design invited speculation even before its function could be approached. Grooves etched across its surface formed patterns that seemed deliberate, neither random nor purely decorative. Lines converged and diverged in a rhythm that mirrored tidal movement, creating a faint impression of motion even when the surrounding water lay still. Microtopography studies suggested that the carvings might have been designed to interact with light, focusing reflections in ways that altered perception depending on viewing angle and sun position. No natural formation could account for the symmetry or the apparent purpose embedded in every curve. Measurements indicate its axis aligns precisely with the sun at equinoxes, suggesting an understanding of celestial cycles. The sphere's tilt is consistent with the geographic latitude of the Azores, while additional grooves point towards specific stellar alignments visible only during certain seasons. This precision implies knowledge of astronomical mechanics far beyond what surviving Atlantean fragments reveal, hinting at a civilization capable of integrating oceanic and celestial observation into a single coherent design. On land, observatories marked the heavens. Underwater, the eye's precision rivals the most sophisticated ancient structures known to humanity. Comparisons with Stonehenge, Chichen Itza, and the Jantar Mantar observatories reveal parallels in alignment, harmonic proportion, and attention to seasonal cycles. Yet the eye combines these principles with a mastery of marine engineering unknown elsewhere. Its existence forces a reconsideration of what ancient civilizations could achieve when adapting technology to their environment, merging observation, calculation, and design with an understanding of forces still under investigation. Some theorists propose it functioned as both a navigational marker and a giant astronomical instrument, reading tides as surely as stars. Its grooves may have acted as channels, directing currents to reveal subtle shifts in water density or flow, while simultaneously indicating celestial positions to those versed in the lost mathematics of Atlantis. Such dual functionality would explain why no equivalent structure exists above water, as the interplay between light, water, and rotation appears essential to its operation. Modern instruments detect correlations between tidal patterns and alignments along the sphere's surface that defy purely coincidental geometry. Magnetic instruments and sonar revealed subtle anomalies, shifts in field strength, faint acoustic reverberations, patterns that defy simple explanation. These readings suggest the eye interacts with the surrounding ocean beyond its physical presence, perhaps amplifying natural frequencies or directing electromagnetic energy in ways that cannot yet be replicated. Even slight adjustments to experimental setups caused variations in data, implying the structure itself may respond to environmental conditions rather than passively enduring them. Under varying angles of sunlight, the eye's grooves and ridges refracted light in patterns that echoed the constellations above, forming transient star maps on the seabed. The shifting reflections aligned with prominent stars during equinoxes and solstices, suggesting the sphere could have functioned as a form of underwater planetarium or navigational guide. Experiments with rotating light sources revealed that small adjustments to angle produced predictable repeating patterns, indicating the structure may have been deliberately calibrated to track solar and stellar movement. These optical interactions may have helped ancient observers correlate celestial events with tidal cycles, allowing for precise calendrical predictions or maritime planning. Unlike simple mirrors or reflective surfaces, The eye's geometry amplified, redirected, and synchronized light across its grooves, producing patterns that seem intentional and functional rather than decorative. Observers describe an eerie sense of presence when studying the sphere, as if it responds to attention rather than movement. Cameras and remote sensors occasionally recorded minute displacements in reflected light or currents that could not be attributed to mechanical or natural causes. Psychologists studying these effects note a subtle vertigo and heightened spatial awareness, as if the human perception of scale and distance is distorted in proximity to the eye. The sensation is not fear, but a quiet, persistent unease, the impression that the artifact is aware of being observed. Additional spherical structures appear across the Azores plateau, forming a network that hints at coordinated observation points or a grid of unknown purpose. Sonar sweeps reveal at least 5 similar spheres within a radius of 50 kilometers, their relative positions forming a lattice that aligns both with fault lines and with calculated azimuths toward prominent stars. This arrangement suggests a civilization not only capable of precise measurement, but also of orchestrating structures across great distances, integrating oceanography and astronomy in ways that remain mysterious. The precision required to calculate its placement, proportions, and alignment surpasses all surviving Atlantean records, suggesting lost mathematical knowledge. Even with modern computer modelling, replicating the relationships between the spheres, tides, and stellar movements produces only approximations, and none fully account for the subtle anomalies recorded in situ. The eye's designers seem to have anticipated changes in sea level, current, and celestial positioning, embedding an enduring system that continues to function long after its creators vanished. Even the most advanced simulations cannot replicate its interaction with light, current, and magnetic fields, leaving its true purpose unresolved. Attempts to reproduce the patterns in laboratories fail to account for the complexity of the sphere's environment or the precision of its astronomical alignments. Each new observation raises further questions, reinforcing the notion that the eye was conceived as more than a tool or marker. It may have been a key to knowledge now lost, a silent sentinel linking sea, sky, and human perception. The eye endures in silence, watching the tides and stars alike, as if guarding a secret the world is not yet ready to understand. Atlantean submerged gardens. Strange patterns of growth appear where no sunlight reaches, as if life itself had been coaxed into thriving against the ocean's oppressive weight. Stone terraces rise in careful tiers, each level framed by retaining walls that curve with deliberate precision. The structures are neither random nor decayed remnants of natural sedimentation. They display geometric clarity, forming a network that channels water, sediment, and nutrients with uncanny accuracy. Subtle variations in terrace height suggest careful adaptation to pressure, current speed, and sediment accumulation, allowing life to persist where natural conditions would have otherwise precluded it. Channels carved between terraces indicate mastery over the flow of water, directing currents to protect fragile beds while evenly distributing sediment. These conduits are narrow yet perfectly aligned, engineered to prevent erosion while encouraging the slow circulation of particles, an ancient system of irrigation and filtration concealed beneath the waves. Small ridges within the channels hint at adjustable thresholds, suggesting the Atlanteans could manipulate water pressure with a precision that rivals modern aquaculture techniques. Even minor misalignments in slope or width would disrupt circulation, demonstrating intentional engineering at a scale rarely seen in ancient construction. Chemical analyses of the soil-like material reveal a mixture of volcanic ash, mineral-rich silt, and decayed organic matter capable of sustaining plant life in extreme underwater conditions. Microscopic studies have detected traces of nitrogen, phosphorus, and rare trace elements, indicating that the terraces were not merely decorative but functional, a carefully maintained substrate designed to nurture life. Certain sections appear to have been reinforced with crushed shells or stone fragments, possibly to stabilize roots against the pressure of deep currents. The uniformity of these engineered soils across multiple sites suggests a standardized method, as if the Atlanteans had perfected a formula for underwater cultivation. Fossilized roots, pollen, and seed fragments suggest the cultivation of species chosen for nutrition, medicinal properties, or symbolic significance. Some resemble Atlantic flora, yet others are entirely unrecognizable, hinting at a lost biogeography or even selective breeding techniques. Traces of pollen aligned with different terrace layers indicate seasonal planting cycles, suggesting the Atlanteans not only understood marine botany but also coordinated growth with the rhythms of tides and lunar cycles. The remnants of delicate stems and leaves follow the terrace's contours, as though the arrangement was intended to maximize growth, access light from refracted surface rays, or optimize interaction with waterborne nutrients. Small aqueducts and filtration systems indicate a deep understanding of tides, salinity, and sediment behavior. Narrow channels divert stronger currents, while perforated stone beds allow fine particles to settle where roots can absorb nutrients. Experiments replicating these designs in controlled tanks show that even minor deviations in slope or width disrupt circulation, revealing that the terrace's dimensions were calculated with exacting precision. Some beds appear to have been periodically flushed with fresh sediment, a method that would prevent stagnation while replenishing essential minerals. Under certain conditions, pockets within the terraces retain microscopic air bubbles and trace gases, suggesting the Atlanteans may have engineered microenvironments to optimize plant metabolism. These subtle modifications could regulate oxygenation and pressure for fragile species, effectively creating miniature ecosystems capable of surviving where natural underwater conditions would otherwise preclude growth. Experiments measuring dissolved gases indicate that the terraces could create localized nutrient-rich zones, allowing plant varieties to thrive despite surrounding currents that would normally strip essential matter away. The terraces may have served multiple purposes beyond sustenance, including ritualistic or experimental functions. Some patterns align with geomagnetic anomalies, while others form concentric spirals or radial designs that resemble ceremonial motifs found in distant terrestrial sites. Comparisons with ancient land-based agriculture, where terraces served both practical and sacred roles, suggest the Atlanteans integrated utility with philosophy, engineering with ritual, creating spaces that nourished both body and mind. Certain terraces align with faint traces of submerged markers, possibly indicating planting calendars or observational tools for celestial and tidal events. Other submerged terraces have been identified across the Azores Plateau, the Caribbean, and scattered Atlantic ridges, forming a network that points to coordinated cultivation or observation. The repetition of design, scale, and alignment hints at standardized practices and suggests that these gardens were not isolated experiments, but components of a broader system. Mapping these sites reveals recurring structural motifs, uniform channel widths, and precise terrace ratios, implying a civilization capable of orchestrating growth across vast distances, mastering both marine environments and plant life in ways modern science has yet to duplicate. Despite centuries of study, the methods used to maintain soil fertility, transport seeds, and monitor growth under extreme pressure remain enigmatic. Experimental reconstructions can mimic portions of the terraces, yet none have achieved the resilience, efficiency, or precision of the original structures. Even minor miscalculations in simulation disrupt water flow, nutrient distribution, and plant stability, demonstrating that these gardens were the product of knowledge lost to time. Each new fragment or terrace layer discovered raises more questions than answers, emphasizing the extent to which Atlantean mastery of life beneath the waves has vanished beneath the relentless ocean. Even in their ruined state, the terraces retain a sense of life, a reminder that Atlantis once coaxed growth from the sea itself. Embedded in the terrace layers are uncommon elements, iron, magnesium, lithium, arranged in a way that suggests purposeful manipulation. These minerals could have enhanced plant resilience and nutrient uptake, functioning as a primitive form of hydroponics under extreme pressure. Some terraces show evidence of microchannels lined with crushed coral or volcanic glass, likely to stabilize roots while moderating chemical composition, hinting at experimentation with substrate conductivity and pH balance. Combined, these features suggest the Atlanteans engineered not just terraces, but living laboratories capable of sustaining complex ecosystems in near total darkness. Beneath the waves, the gardens lie silent, yet the pattern of their design suggests a vitality that refuses to be fully buried by time. Atlantean water vessels of impossible design. Miniature models of vessels, carved from dense stone, reveal hulls that curve and taper in ways no conventional shipwright could reproduce. The tiny forms display an uncanny symmetry, with contours that suggest an understanding of forces and pressures beyond any known ancient seafaring culture. While small enough to fit in a single hand, these models mirror the proportions of full-scale ships depicted in Atlantean reliefs, hinting that their creators understood not only geometry, but also the physics required for stability and resilience at sea. Their careful balance and precise angles imply a deliberate engineering philosophy, one designed to survive conditions that would shatter ordinary vessels. Some hulls widen at their midsection yet taper sharply at bow and stern, forming a profile optimized to resist crushing forces while maintaining improbable balance. The curvature of each vessel is precise, with sharp edges and smooth transitions that would reduce drag and increase stability in turbulent waters. These design choices suggest knowledge of hydrodynamics that rivals modern naval architecture, yet there is no record of similar experimentation in any other ancient culture. The miniatures themselves bear faint incisions along keels and ribs, which may represent internal bracing or structural reinforcements that hint at full-scale implementations. Tests on fragments suggest astonishing durability, with wood-like composites and metals capable of withstanding pressures far beyond the depth of any known vessel. Small sections of hull material display tensile strength and elasticity that modern science cannot fully replicate. Some samples, when subjected to simulated underwater compression, retained form while traditional woods and alloys would collapse, indicating that the Atlanteans engineered their materials to endure extraordinary forces. The implications are profound. These were not ceremonial models, but prototypes, meticulously designed to function in real maritime conditions. Even the most advanced modern hulls would collapse under the stresses these vessels appear built to endure, hinting at engineering principles lost to history. The vessel's forms seem to distribute weight and absorb shocks in ways that contradict contemporary theories of balance and flotation. In addition, their shape suggests an ability to navigate both shallow coastal waters and the crushing depths of open ocean trenches, a versatility that modern naval engineers still struggle to achieve. The careful calibration of hull curvature, internal volume, and keel alignment implies a level of maritime sophistication that raises questions about the limits of Atlantean technology. The vessels may have been designed for long voyages, deep-sea travel, or ceremonial passages across treacherous waters, their scale and symmetry hinting at a specialized purpose. Miniature depictions show odd configurations alongside sail-like structures, suggesting adaptability to varying propulsion methods. Certain models incorporate enclosed chambers that could have served for cargo, water, or even habitation, implying voyages of extended duration. The diversity of hull forms across different sites also hints at experimentation, as if the Atlanteans were refining their designs to master the seas with precision unmatched by any contemporaneous civilization. Structural studies reveal internal bracing and segmented hulls that suggest knowledge of hydrodynamics, pressure distribution, and balance that surpasses known ancient techniques. The models show ribs and partitions carved with precision, possibly indicating compartmentalization to prevent flooding or improve buoyancy. Some designs include subtle curves along the keel that would deflect waves and reduce torsional stress, a technique modern naval architects recognize but rarely employ in small-scale vessels. These features suggest a civilization capable of integrating mathematics, physics, and material science into practical seafaring solutions, long before similar principles were codified elsewhere. Chemical analysis of metallic remnants shows unusual alloys resistant to corrosion, a composition unmatched in surviving Atlantean artifacts and unknown to modern metallurgy. Microscopic examination reveals tightly bound molecular structures and trace elements that may have been deliberately introduced to enhance strength and durability. The combination of metals and composites could explain how vessels withstood saltwater exposure, deep pressures, and constant motion without succumbing to rust or decay. Such mastery of materials suggests that Atlantean knowledge encompassed both design and chemical engineering, blending science and craft in ways that modern historians can barely reconstruct. Models and reliefs depicting similar hull forms appear across distant Atlantean ruins, indicating a standardized design or a shared nautical philosophy. The recurrence of certain shapes, dimensions, and internal patterns implies coordinated instruction or a codified design language. Some reliefs portray vessels in motion, their sharp bows cutting through stylized waves, suggesting both practical function and symbolic representation. This consistency across sites separated by hundreds of kilometers indicates a civilization with the capacity to disseminate technological knowledge over vast distances, establishing a maritime culture far more sophisticated than previously imagined. How these vessels were constructed, how crews managed extreme conditions, and why such advanced designs vanished remain questions that modern science cannot answer. Replicas using contemporary tools and materials have failed to match the durability or efficiency suggested by the models. Even minor alterations in hull curvature or rib spacing compromise balance, showing that Atlantean design was not intuitive, but based on precise calculations that remain beyond full understanding. Each fragment, each relief, leaves a haunting impression of knowledge lost, a mastery of the ocean that vanished without explanation. Though only fragments and miniatures survive, their existence suggests a civilization that navigated the oceans with a mastery that defies both time and physics. Time and water have not entirely silenced them. The echoes of these impossible vessels may still drift, waiting for the ocean to reveal the secrets of their design. Atlantean glyphs of power. Across the walls of submerged ruins, intricate symbols seem carved with a precision that defies ordinary tools, each line flowing into the next with hypnotic continuity. Some glyphs stretch across entire chambers, their forms interweaving like living script, while others are small and discreet, tucked into corners or etched along doorways. The consistency of their craftsmanship hints at a disciplined hand and a codified knowledge, suggesting that these markings were more than mere decoration. Even in their weathered state, the glyphs exude purpose, each line and curve deliberately chosen to fit within a larger unseen system. The glyphs are etched into stone so hard that even modern chisels struggle to leave a mark, with grooves that maintain their clarity despite centuries of corrosion and ocean pressure. Close inspection reveals microscopic striations that imply advanced tooling or techniques not documented in contemporary Atlantean metallurgy. Some symbols incorporate angular incisions combined with smooth curves, forming a duality that may serve both aesthetic and functional purposes. The depth and angle of the etching suggest an understanding of material stress, allowing the symbols to endure currents and sediment abrasion without losing definition. Circular motifs interlock with angular sigils, forming patterns that repeat across walls, floors, and even ceilings, suggesting a deliberate system rather than artistic whim. Some symbols mirror natural forms, like spirals found in shells or waves, while others are entirely abstract, hinting at an internal logic encoded by their creators. The repetition and symmetry across multiple chambers imply a unified design, possibly a language or a code, with each glyph functioning as part of a larger network of information. Researchers have noted that certain sequences appear in multiple locations, indicating that knowledge was transmitted and standardized throughout the civilization. Some researchers propose that the glyphs served as more than decoration, perhaps acting as conduits for energy or as keys to control mechanical or hydraulic devices embedded in the ruins. The alignment of certain symbols corresponds to channels, recesses, and platforms, suggesting that their placement was integral to a functional system. While speculative, this theory gains weight when considering the proximity of etched patterns to other Atlantean constructs, such as energy pylons or water conduits. The glyphs may have been the interface of a complex mechanism, translating human intention into forces that the civilization could manipulate. Under shifting currents and filtered light, certain symbols appear to shimmer or reflect faintly, hinting that their orientation and depth were chosen to interact with natural elements. Some markings catch microscopic air bubbles, while others focus on bioluminescent plankton, creating fleeting glows that accentuate their forms. These interactions are subtle but consistent, suggesting the Atlanteans intentionally harnessed environmental conditions to enhance the visibility or function of their work. The play of light and shadow across the symbols may have had practical, ceremonial, or even experimental purposes, embedding meaning into both form and context. Identical glyphs have been recorded hundreds of kilometers apart from the Azores to the Caribbean, implying a shared knowledge or codified language across the Atlantean network. The recurrence of specific motifs, angles, and spatial relationships indicates that Atlanteans may have maintained a centralized system of instruction or communication. Sites separated by vast distances exhibit the same combinations of spirals, triangles, and interlaced lines, suggesting that these symbols were not isolated artistic expressions, but integral components of a broader technological or cultural framework. Spectroscopic and mineral analyses reveal traces of rare elements along the etched lines, some of which are conductive or magnetic, hinting that the glyphs may have been part of a functional system rather than mere ornamentation. Certain grooves contain subtle deposits of iron, copper, and other metals that interact with environmental currents. The presence of these materials raises the possibility that the glyphs could channel static, influence magnetic fields, or even store energy under specific conditions. Such findings blur the line between symbolism and technology, revealing a civilization that merged artistry with scientific sophistication in ways still beyond modern understanding. Legends tell of Atlantean priests invoking symbols to influence tides, storms, or celestial cycles, a narrative that may reflect actual technological applications encoded in the glyphs themselves. Ancient texts described the language of lines, through which knowledge of water, wind, and earth could be transmitted. While it is impossible to verify the literal truth of these stories, the physical evidence of glyphs interacting with water flow, currents, and pressure lends plausibility to the idea that they were more than symbolic. The intersection of legend and material science suggests that Atlanteans may have designed systems that were both functional and ritualized, bridging the gap between empirical knowledge and spiritual practice. In certain chambers, instruments detect minor surges in magnetic fields or static anomalies near specific glyphs, phenomena that cannot be explained by surrounding geology alone. Sensors record irregular patterns of energy that fluctuate with tidal shifts or passing currents, often aligning with sequences of glyphs. These effects are subtle yet reproducible, implying that the glyphs themselves may have been designed to interact with the natural environment in measurable ways. Such anomalies provoke questions about the Atlanteans' understanding of physics, suggesting they may have encoded principles of energy manipulation directly into stone. Although examined in detail over decades, the glyphs' function, activation, and deeper logic continue to puzzle researchers, raising questions about whether they were keys, warnings, or something beyond comprehension. The repetition, precision, and placement of each symbol imply intent and understanding, yet the method by which they could function as intended is lost to time. As researchers continue to map and analyze their structures, it becomes increasingly clear that these glyphs were part of a civilization capable of combining observation, engineering, and art in ways that challenge all modern assumptions. As silent witnesses, the glyphs endure, their true purpose hidden in patterns that may never be deciphered by human minds. The Atlantean singing crystals. Clustered in subterranean chambers, massive crystals jut from the seabed like frozen flames, their surfaces refracting the faintest glimmers of light that penetrate the water above. Their size alone is imposing, some as tall as a person, others dwarfing divers as they glide between them. But it is the uniformity of their angles and the precision of their faces that suggest intentional shaping. In certain chambers, crystals are arranged in linear patterns or arcs that seem to mirror acoustic principles, implying that the Atlanteans may have considered not only placement, but the interaction between one crystal and another. The formations exude purpose, as if the very geometry of the stones was meant to manipulate sound, vibration, or some other form of energy still unknown to modern observers. Some exceed human height, their crystalline faces perfectly smooth, while others are faceted with geometric precision, hinting at deliberate shaping rather than natural formation. Chemical analysis reveals a combination of quartz and rare trace minerals, some of which can subtly influence resonance and conductivity, while minute scratches along certain edges suggest tools or methods designed to refine their harmonic potential. Even the smallest imperfections seem calculated, placed to create specific acoustic responses when water or physical contact moves through the chamber. The sheer durability of the stones has preserved these intricate surfaces despite centuries of saltwater erosion, allowing researchers to witness their original forms with remarkable clarity. When touched or struck, the crystals emit tones that ripple through water, harmonics that shift with currents and depth, producing sounds both haunting and precise. Each note seems to carry multiple frequencies simultaneously, interacting with surrounding surfaces to create an eerie symphony that changes depending on angle, pressure, or the observer's position. Experiments show that a single strike can produce vibrations that persist for minutes, propagating through adjoining stones and even influencing sediment movement in nearby chambers. The effect is mesmerizing, and while it is tempting to interpret these phenomena as mere accidents, the consistency and intentionality of the design suggest a civilization capable of controlling sound in ways that remain deeply mysterious. Currents passing through these chambers seem to set the crystals vibrating, as if the ocean itself plays a symphony that the Atlanteans could orchestrate. Gentle underwater flows are enough to produce a low hum, while stronger surges create resonances that harmonize across multiple crystals. Observers have noted that certain alignments amplify these vibrations, hinting at deliberate positioning to harness natural forces. The interaction of water and stone transforms the chambers into living instruments, each vibration producing subtle changes in pressure, light reflection, and even minor electrical discharge detectable with modern equipment. It is as if the ocean itself becomes part of the composition, collaborating with Atlantean ingenuity to produce phenomena that defy easy explanation. It has been proposed that these resonances serve purposes such as communication, navigation, or even focusing energy, translating vibrations into measurable effects on nearby structures. The placement of crystals often coincides with conduits, pylons, and other Atlantean constructs, suggesting that their sound was not simply aesthetic but functional. Vibrations could have been used to transmit signals across chambers, manipulate water movement, or even influence mechanical devices. While direct evidence of such applications remains elusive, the integration of acoustic, structural, and environmental elements points to a civilization that recognized the power of resonance as a tool, not just a curiosity. The tonal behavior of these crystals has been documented, with specific patterns causing neighboring stones to resonate, implying careful engineering for sound control. Instruments detect overlapping frequencies that suggest tuning or calibration, a level of sophistication rarely observed in natural formations. These sequences vary by chamber, indicating that the Atlanteans may have tailored each set of crystals for specific functions, whether ritual, navigational, or technological. The phenomenon demonstrates not only a mastery of material and form, but also a keen understanding of vibrational physics, a science that modern researchers are only beginning to explore in underwater environments. Positioned near energy pylons and water conduits, the crystals appear integrated into Atlantean systems, potentially serving as both musical and functional components in a larger technological network. Their arrangement is rarely haphazard. Clusters often align with architectural elements, channeling vibrations along precise paths and interacting with surrounding structures. Some models suggest that sound could trigger mechanical responses, such as opening chambers or releasing water through engineered channels. The connection between crystalline acoustics and other Atlantean constructs reinforces the notion that these stones were not isolated curiosities but essential elements in a coordinated and highly sophisticated environment. Mineralogical analysis indicates these crystals contain trace elements that could enhance resonance, allowing frequencies to travel farther and interact with water pressure in ways modern physics can only partially explain. Variations in composition produce subtle differences in timbre and pitch, creating an array of tones that can combine to form complex harmonics. These findings suggest that the Atlanteans deliberately selected minerals for their acoustic properties, blending natural geology with refined craftsmanship. It is a level of planning that implies not just an understanding of sound, but of energy, vibration, and perhaps even principles we have yet to fully comprehend. Atlantean texts and carvings depict figures striking crystalline forms with rods or hands, suggesting that sound may have been central to ritual, ceremony, or even instruction in harnessing natural forces. Certain depictions show groups performing synchronized actions, producing chords or sequences that interact with the environment. These scenes hint at knowledge that extended beyond simple music, incorporating elements of engineering, physics, and spirituality. The symbolism of sound, combined with the precise manipulation of material, suggests a culture in which the acoustic and the technological were inseparable, each reinforcing the other in ways that have yet to be fully understood. Extensive examination has yet to reveal the full function of the singing crystals, the techniques of their tuning, or the logic behind their acoustic mastery. Experiments reproduce only fragments of the effects, and no modern design has achieved the combination of resonance, durability, and interaction observed in these chambers. The mystery of how the Atlanteans could manipulate sound, material, and environment in such a seamless and enduring fashion underscores the civilization's mastery of forces that continue to elude contemporary science. The faint vibrations of these submerged crystals still whisper through the water, carrying secrets that may never surface. Atlantean sky temples. Towering above intricately carved reliefs, the temples appear to defy gravity, their peaks lost in a veil of clouds or mist, hinting at a verticality that exceeds any known Atlantean structure. Each image depicts terraces stacked impossibly, staircases spiraling into nothingness, and platforms that seem suspended without support, challenging the very limits of stone and engineering. The consistency of these depictions across multiple ruins suggests that the Atlanteans imagined or attempted architecture on a scale far beyond what survives today. Even weathered carvings convey a sense of awe, as though the creators intended viewers to grasp the magnitude and ambition of structures that may never have existed in the physical world. Columns stretch upward with monumental precision, adorned with motifs that echo other Atlantean constructs, such as energy conduits, crystal chambers, and carved pylons. Each pillar is intricately etched, with patterns that may correspond to celestial observation points or ceremonial pathways, implying that these temples were designed with both function and grandeur in mind. The repetition of geometric forms across different reliefs hints at a codified architectural language, one that integrated art, ritual, and perhaps even forgotten technologies into a cohesive visual statement. Some depictions show terraces layered in impossible alignment, platforms extending beyond the horizon of the carving, and bridges that seem unsupported, defying conventional understanding of material limits. The exaggeration of scale may represent symbolic intent, suggesting ascension, divine authority, or a metaphysical connection between earth and sky. Yet the precision and symmetry in these images imply that exaggeration alone cannot explain the design. The Atlanteans appear to have understood principles of balance, load, and geometry that remain striking even to modern observers. Scholars propose that these skyward constructions were more than architectural fantasies, functioning as visual metaphors for ascension, enlightenment, or alignment with celestial bodies. Some reliefs depict figures positioned at the highest terraces, holding instruments or performing rituals that suggest interaction with sunlight, stars, or the moon. The verticality of the temples may have been intended to bring inhabitants closer to the heavens, both literally and spiritually, merging practical observation with symbolic resonance. Comparisons with submerged pylons, crystal chambers, and energy conduits reveal a persistent design language across Atlantean artifacts, suggesting that architectural principles applied underwater may have influenced imagined above-ground structures. Elements such as repetitive columns, concentric platforms, and strategic orientation appear in both sunken and skyward designs, implying that Atlanteans translated terrestrial forms into aspirational or ceremonial concepts. Even the depiction of terraces aligning with natural light or celestial patterns reflects a consistent awareness of environmental interaction and spatial engineering. Reliefs often portray sunlight glinting along apexes, clouds swirling around terraces, and shadows falling across staircases in ways that suggest deliberate observation of solar and lunar movement. Certain carvings align with known astronomical phenomena, hinting that the temples may have served as calendars, observatories, or ceremonial stages for celestial events. The interplay of light, shadow, and structure demonstrates that the Atlanteans considered environmental dynamics in their designs, merging aesthetics, science, and ritual into a unified vision. Within ancient writings, references appear to temples that touch the sky, recounting ceremonies performed at dizzying heights, even though no physical evidence remains. Some accounts recount gatherings where participants observed stars through openings in the upper terraces or conducted offerings toward the sun, reinforcing the idea that these structures were designed for interaction with the heavens. While the reliability of these texts is uncertain, their correlation with visual depictions strengthens the case for a cultural fascination with verticality and celestial alignment. Fragments of stepped platforms, massive stone blocks, and the foundations of large pillars discovered on elevated terrain may hint at partial construction or preparatory efforts, yet they fall far short of the towering proportions illustrated in reliefs. These remnants suggest that Atlanteans experimented with ambitious architectural projects that either were never completed or were lost entirely to time and catastrophe. The scale and ambition evident in the artifacts challenge contemporary understanding of ancient engineering, raising questions about how they intended to realize such heights and what materials or techniques they may have employed. The possibility remains that forgotten engineering, innovative scaffolds, or technologies lost to time allowed the Atlanteans to reach such unprecedented heights. While speculative, the meticulous repetition of forms, alignment with celestial patterns, and integration of symbolic motifs suggests that the Atlanteans possessed a level of technical knowledge and planning rarely observed in other civilizations of the same era. The combination of artistry, engineering, and astronomical awareness reflects a civilization that merged imagination with practical skill, leaving behind visual records of structures that continue to challenge modern comprehension. Centuries of research have yet to reveal the full truth of the Atlantean sky temples, which survive only in inscriptions, fragments, and echoes of stories, their true form suspended between legend and reality. The impossibility of these structures today only amplifies the wonder of their depiction, raising enduring questions about a civilization that imagined or achieved feats beyond the capabilities of even modern engineering. The Atlantean sky temples linger in memory and stone, their heights unseen and their secrets unreachable by any who searches below. The Atlantean compass stones. On the sunless plains below the Atlantic, currents weave through sand and coral around formations that have resisted understanding for centuries. Massive stones, some taller than a modern lighthouse, are arranged in precise patterns that seem almost deliberate, as if they were laid with intent rather than chance. Each block is carved from a dense dark mineral, resistant to erosion and polished to a smooth reflective sheen despite millennia of exposure to salt water and shifting sediments. Early oceanographers, using sonar mapping in the mid-20th century, first noted that these stones were not randomly distributed. Their alignments correspond to angles and distances that echo the cardinal directions, suggesting a level of sophistication in orientation that modern instruments struggle to replicate without complex calculations. The so-called Atlantean compass stones appear to function as more than simple markers. Some stones are engraved with subtle grooves and notches, barely visible unless illuminated by angled light, which could indicate points of reference or alignment guides. Their placement on rising seabeds and plateaus seems to anticipate tidal movements, allowing certain stones to remain visible above shifting sands, while others lie partially buried, hinting at a design that accounted for environmental change over centuries. The uniformity of the stone material, despite the geological diversity of the surrounding seabed, has puzzled geologists. Many blocks are composed of a volcanic rock not native to the immediate area, suggesting either transportation across vast distances or quarrying from now lost locations, a logistical feat that challenges contemporary understanding of ancient engineering. Classical writings, long dismissed as legend, recount a sea of beacons where sailors navigated by monumental markers rising from the waves. Herodotus, for instance, speaks of structures in the Atlantic known only to those versed in maritime secrets, and Plato's account of Atlantis hints at a civilization that charted the waters with stones that knew the winds and tides. While these writings are sparse and cryptic, the correspondence with the physical evidence of the compass stones lends an eerie resonance, suggesting that something remarkable was once at work in a region long considered mythic. Modern attempts to replicate the function of the compass stones have yielded inconclusive results, but patterns emerge when the stones are mapped digitally. Certain clusters point directly towards significant underwater topography, including thermal vents, submerged mountains, and channels that would have been critical for navigation in an age without compasses or magnetic instrumentation. The angles are precise to fractions of a degree, far surpassing what could be achieved through casual placement. Researchers have speculated that the stones might have served both practical and ceremonial purposes, perhaps marking routes while also embodying a symbolic representation of the Atlanteans' mastery over the sea. The craftsmanship is equally enigmatic. Tool marks indicate shaping with implements harder than copper, yet no trace of advanced metallurgy has been found nearby. Some stones feature circular depressions and carved arcs, suggesting a function akin to a primitive gnomon or sundial, but submerged and adapted to a watery environment where sunlight penetration is minimal. Experiments with lasers and sonar reflection have demonstrated that when positioned correctly, these stones can produce detectable pulses of sound and light across considerable distances, hinting at a knowledge of physics far beyond what ancient civilizations are credited with. Ultraviolet surveys have uncovered subtle microetchings along the foundations of these stones. These patterns resemble star charts and tidal cycles, aligning certain stones with the rising of specific constellations, including Orion and the Pleiades, which were critical in ancient navigation. This celestial alignment may have allowed Atlantean voyagers to determine latitude with remarkable accuracy, offering a plausible explanation for reports of their ability to traverse vast distances with astonishing precision. However, the techniques they used to maintain the stones' positions, particularly during seismic activity or shifting currents, remain unexplained. Complicating the mystery is the occasional appearance of stones in locations where sediment analysis indicates they could not have naturally settled. Remote-operated submersible vehicles have captured images of individual monoliths resting atop bedrock in configurations that suggest deliberate placement, yet these sites show no signs of conventional anchoring methods. Marine biologists note that certain formations influence local currents, redirecting water flow in a way that reduces sediment accumulation around the stones, effectively keeping them exposed. Whether this was intentional or an incidental consequence of their design is still debated, but it implies an advanced understanding of hydrodynamics and environmental engineering. Stories from local fishermen and underwater explorers add another layer to the enigma. Accounts describe stones that seem to shift or realign after storms, though scientific observation has yet to confirm any actual movement. Some suggest the impressions of shifting may result from optical illusions created by water currents and sediment, while others speculate that Atlanteans may have installed mechanisms now obscured or decayed, designed to subtly adjust the stone's positions over time. The ambiguity of these reports only deepens the sense of a civilization whose ingenuity exceeded the limits of the historical record. Even the chemical composition of the stones challenges modern assumptions. Analysis reveals traces of rare elements, including bismuth and trace amounts of gold embedded within the mineral matrix. These elements are not uniformly distributed and do not appear naturally in such combinations in nearby geology. The anomalies suggest intentional alloying or treatment, raising questions about whether the Atlanteans possessed techniques for modifying materials to resist corrosion, align magnetically, or enhance reflective properties. Each discovery compounds the puzzle, hinting at a civilization whose technological and scientific capabilities remain largely invisible beneath the ocean's surface. While much remains speculative, the convergence of archaeological observation, geophysical data, and historical accounts paints a picture of a navigational network that was both functional and symbolic, a manifestation of human ingenuity that has vanished without a trace. Every expedition to map these formations reveals new alignments, subtle anomalies, and traces of knowledge that seem deliberately encoded in stone. For a civilization often dismissed as myth, the compass stones endure as evidence of a level of sophistication that defies expectations, challenging the notion that humanity's mastery of the sea is purely a modern achievement. And yet, for all the maps, sonar images, and underwater surveys, the purpose of the compass stones remains elusive, leaving the impression that they were designed to guide not only ships, but perhaps those who dared to understand a knowledge long lost to the depths. Atlantean mirrors of memory. Buried among the collapsed corridors of a sunken temple, sheets of polished stone catch stray light, forming fleeting reflections that seem almost deliberate, as if the Atlanteans had designed them to interact with the water itself. The surfaces are unusually smooth, far beyond the erosion resistance expected of submerged stone over millennia, and their edges bear faint, regular incisions, suggesting deliberate shaping rather than natural wear. Divers report a subtle sense of depth when peering into these mirrors, as if layers of material beneath the surface refract light in ways that trick the eye, producing faint illusions of movement that vanish when approached too closely. The chambers themselves appear carefully constructed to accommodate these objects, with ceilings and walls slanting in ways that optimize the angle of reflection, hinting at a sophisticated understanding of optics long before the physics of light was formally documented. Excavated pieces from the seabed reveal meticulously beveled edges, hinting at craftsmanship beyond contemporary understanding. Small chips reveal crystalline structures within the stone, evidence that artisans may have combined multiple materials to produce reflective qualities without relying solely on polish. Some fragments bear microscopic scoring patterns, which under magnification suggest repetitive handwork, possibly indicating a process designed to calibrate the surface for specific visual effects. The labour required to craft these mirrors implies a society that devoted significant resources to a purpose both functional and ceremonial, leaving behind artifacts that are as enigmatic in their manufacture as in their placement. Geochemical analysis reveals traces of rare minerals, including magnetite and ilmenite, embedded beneath the reflective surface, altering how light interacts with the stone. These elements could affect reflection and refraction, enhancing the intensity or direction of light in ways that may have enabled complex optical phenomena. In addition, thin layers of an unidentified silicate appear to coat certain mirrors, preserving their polish even in the harsh saline environment, a preservation method that modern science struggles to replicate. Such materials suggest that Atlantean artisans were not merely sculptors, but experimental chemists of light, manipulating substances to achieve effects that remain baffling to contemporary researchers. The mirrors often appear in circular arrangements, their positioning suggesting ritual significance rather than practical utility. In several chambers, small clusters face each other across short distances, creating repeated reflections that could have been intended to multiply images or capture motion in a controlled way. The placement appears deliberate, aligning with architectural features such as raised platforms and steps, which might have directed viewers to stand in precise positions for ceremonies or observation. This combination of geometry and optics indicates a dual purpose. The mirrors were both functional instruments and symbolic objects, embodying a knowledge of perception intertwined with spiritual or social meaning. Occasional scratches and grooves indicate repeated contact with small objects or instruments, implying the mirrors may have been used to manipulate reflections in controlled ways. Experiments with replica surfaces underwater have demonstrated that placing small metallic or glass objects against these grooves produces subtle alterations in reflected light, suggesting that Atlanteans may have used them to project, amplify, or distort images. Some researchers propose these were early analog devices for observation or communication, recording fleeting movements or even creating visual sequences, though the exact method and intention remain elusive. The evidence points to a civilization capable of abstract experimentation, blending science and art in ways that leave the modern mind both fascinated and frustrated. In some chambers, mirrors align with natural fissures where sunlight once penetrated, directing beams in a pattern that could have marked hours or seasons. Seasonal changes in angle and intensity would have shifted reflections subtly, implying that Atlanteans possessed a precise understanding of solar movement and its interaction with built spaces. This alignment suggests that the mirrors were not static objects, but dynamic instruments integrated into the rhythms of nature, capable of marking time or signaling changes in the environment. Such precision challenges assumptions about the technological limits of early civilizations and underscores a harmonious relationship between architecture, astronomy, and optical science. Remote imaging has detected unusual optical effects, overlapping reflections that cannot be reproduced outside the water, hinting at deliberate experimentation with underwater light. In certain arrangements, a single ray of light entering from a small opening produces a cascade of mirrored images, bouncing between surfaces to create a faint but coherent projection across the chamber floor. No conventional explanation accounts for the persistence or clarity of these reflections, and repeated dives have shown that even minor shifts in angle or sediment coverage alter the effect dramatically, reinforcing the impression that Atlantean mirrors were finely tuned instruments rather than decorative panels. Several mirrors bear minute pictographs along their margins, depicting figures interacting with light and shadow, suggesting a symbolic or educational function. These images, though worn, appear to illustrate gestures, alignments, and interactions with reflected light, hinting that the mirrors may have served as visual teaching tools or ritual devices. Inscriptions around the carvings indicate awareness of celestial patterns, tidal movements, and other natural phenomena, embedding practical knowledge within a framework of ceremonial observance. The interplay between practical demonstration and spiritual symbolism emphasizes the mirror's multifaceted purpose, offering insight into a culture that fused knowledge and belief into tangible, enduring objects. Technological investigation has illuminated some aspects of the mirrors, yet their complete function remains just out of reach, teasing observers with partial understanding. Each discovery uncovers new layers of complexity, whether through material composition, spatial arrangement, or optical effect, and every experiment raises as many questions as it answers. They survive as enigmatic witnesses to a civilization whose grasp of perception, light, and reflection was far more sophisticated than contemporary understanding allows. And still the waters keep their secrets, allowing only fragments of a knowledge that seems designed to vanish with the civilization itself. The Atlantean Pillars of Flame. Soaring like spectral columns from the ocean floor, the Atlantean pillars pierce the murky depths with an intensity that draws both light and attention, their surfaces polished to a sheen that reflects even the faintest illumination of submersible lamps. Some towers exceed the height of modern buildings, while others taper delicately, forming slender spires that vanish into the darkness above. Their presence alone disrupts expectations of what could survive centuries under saltwater pressure, and the arrangement of each column hints at a deliberate plan, as if the builders had envisioned both visibility and endurance across the shifting seabed. Sediment flows around the pillars, leaving their bases remarkably free from silt, an effect that could be natural but seems almost engineered to preserve them in prominence. Each pillar is carved from a dense glassy stone that remains unblemished by centuries of current and sediment, suggesting deliberate treatment or selection. Geological analysis indicates a composite structure, combining igneous rock with traces of iron and rare silicates, a combination not typically found in the surrounding seabed. The uniformity of this material across distant sites implies either extensive quarrying and transportation or a mastery of stoneworking techniques that allowed the Atlanteans to create a consistent and resilient product. Even minor imperfections show evidence of careful correction, pointing to a civilization that invested remarkable skill into producing structures both monumental and precise. Observers have noted faint warmth emanating from the structures, accompanied by subtle bubbling along their bases, anomalies that resist conventional explanation. Thermal imaging and chemical sensors detect sporadic increases in temperature that cannot be linked to natural geothermal activity, and bubbles of unknown gas emerge intermittently from fissures, raising questions about potential chemical reactions occurring within the stone. These phenomena have led some researchers to speculate that the pillars were more than decorative or symbolic, possibly designed to generate energy or light, yet no definitive mechanism has been identified that could sustain such activity underwater for centuries. Set at measured intervals, the pillars echo the contours of underwater ridges and valleys, as though mapping the seafloor in a pattern beyond coincidence. Lines drawn between the bases of individual columns correspond closely to natural channels and depressions, suggesting a deep understanding of the ocean floor's topology. Some pillars form concentric circles or elongated rows that might have guided travelers or marked significant locations. The precision of their placement indicates both planning and surveying skill, hinting at a civilization with knowledge of cartography, engineering, and the behavior of underwater currents. In surviving texts, references to towers of flame evoke images that eerily mirror these underwater structures. Ancient accounts from Greek, Phoenician, and later Roman writers describe islands where columns emitted light or fire, often in connection with ceremonies or maritime guidance. While these texts are sparse and open to interpretation, the physical pillars discovered in the Atlantic bear striking resemblance to these accounts, suggesting that what was once considered allegory may have had a basis in real structures. The correspondence between text and artifact offers a rare glimpse of a civilization whose technologies were long assumed lost. Analysis under high-resolution imaging reveals microscopic fractures containing iron and sulfur compounds, hinting at chemical interactions that could produce light or heat. Tiny veins within the stone appear to channel minerals in a manner that may have enhanced combustion or luminescence, and residues of organic compounds have been detected, though their original purpose remains uncertain. Laboratory simulations indicate that under pressure and with contact from seawater, these compounds could create brief flashes or subtle glows, though reproducing the sustained effect observed in situ has eluded even the most careful experiments. Such evidence points to a sophisticated understanding of chemistry and environmental manipulation, suggesting that the pillars may have functioned as both ceremonial beacons and experimental devices. Reconstructed trials using water and pressurized chemical mixtures have produced fleeting glimmers of flame, yet none achieved the sustained glow observed in place. Engineers and chemists attempting to replicate the phenomenon note that controlling underwater reactions of this scale would require precise knowledge of materials, timing, and containment, much of which would have been extraordinarily advanced for a civilization presumed to predate known chemistry. These failures do not negate the possibility that the Atlanteans discovered methods now lost to history, using stone, minerals, and seawater to create a controlled, enduring source of fire or light, a capability that continues to defy explanation. Carvings etched along the base portray figures holding torches or gesturing toward the pillars, suggesting they were part of a ritualized practice or instructional display. Some reliefs depict groups arranged in deliberate positions around the columns, observing or interacting with them, while others show abstract symbols resembling flames or waves, possibly representing energy or motion. These artistic clues imply a dual purpose. The pillars were at once functional and symbolic, a combination of practical display, energy manipulation, and cultural or religious significance. The integration of ritual with technology underscores a worldview in which scientific knowledge and spiritual observance were inseparable, leaving modern observers to reconstruct intent from fragmented evidence. No current understanding fully accounts for the pillars' arrangement, resilience, or mysterious luminescence, leaving them suspended between comprehension and legend. Each expedition to examine these columns uncovers more anomalies, from thermal variations to chemical residues, and each finding raises new questions about the Atlanteans' capabilities. Their durability, precision, and potential energy-producing properties suggest a mastery of materials and processes that modern science can only approximate, emphasizing that what lies beneath the waves is not merely a relic of architecture, but a window into ingenuity that continues to elude explanation. Silent and immovable, the pillars emerge from the depths, their glow a subtle warning that some knowledge lies beyond reach. Atlantean floating platforms. Flat expanses of stone rise with unnatural symmetry, their edges too precise to be the product of erosion or chance, suggesting a design that balances form and function with extraordinary attention. Each surface is remarkably level, even across sections stretching tens of meters, and the contours appear deliberately calculated to distribute weight evenly. Subtle undulations indicate channels or grooves, perhaps intended to guide movement or secure objects, though their precise purpose remains undeciphered. Observers note that the size and arrangement of these platforms would have allowed coordinated activity across multiple sections simultaneously, hinting at a civilization with both engineering skill and social organization capable of orchestrating large-scale operations. A closer look reveals intricate layering of minerals and metallic traces, engineered in ways that suggest careful control over weight and stability. Iron, copper, and traces of rare silicates are embedded within the stone, forming internal lattices that may have reinforced structural integrity. Certain surfaces display a gloss or polish, inconsistent with natural sedimentary wear, as though artisans had intentionally smoothed them to enhance durability or reduce friction. Even microscopic fractures appear to have been deliberately sealed with composite materials, indicating an awareness of long-term preservation and a mastery of techniques that remain unknown to modern science. Specific sections appear hollowed or compartmentalized, hinting at an understanding of buoyancy or fluid displacement beyond what should have been possible. Internal cavities are arranged in symmetrical patterns that suggest they could hold air, lighter materials, or fluids to adjust the platform's density. The geometry of these hollows is precise, with angles and spacing that would influence balance, tilt, and the interaction with water currents. Laboratory simulations with scaled models show that such designs could, in theory, allow temporary flotation or partial suspension, though reproducing the exact stability observed in the Atlantean originals has yet to be achieved, leaving the phenomenon both plausible and mysterious. Detailed inspection of the cavities shows delicate channels that might have controlled water flow or air pockets, helping stabilize structures over rough terrain. Some chambers contain traces of resin-like substances, possibly used to waterproof or seal compartments while maintaining buoyancy. Microscopic analysis shows evidence of mineral deposits forming in consistent patterns along these hollows, suggesting intentional shaping rather than random sediment accumulation. Such engineering hints at a sophisticated understanding of pressure, balance, and material interaction, allowing the Atlanteans to create structures capable of withstanding both movement and the shifting currents of the surrounding waters. Groups of these structures form patterns that align with subtle changes in current and depth, as if they were mapped to interact with the ocean itself. Some appear positioned to bridge small channels, while others seem to form arcs or concentric layouts, potentially serving as pathways or markers. The spacing is remarkably consistent, suggesting intentional coordination with environmental features rather than random placement. This implies not only a sophisticated understanding of spatial design, but also an awareness of hydrodynamics, currents, and the potential impact of water pressure on large, floating or semi-floating objects. Stories passed down through seafaring cultures speak of vast decks that floated independently of the waves, echoing the shapes and scale of the platforms now being studied. Chroniclers describe islands or platforms that could support both people and cargo, sometimes moving in ways that defied ordinary currents. While these accounts are often dismissed as myth, the correlation with surviving structures lends them a newfound plausibility. The convergence of legend, material evidence, and structural analysis paints a picture of Atlanteans experimenting with controlled flotation, bridging the gap between myth and measurable reality. Recreations using precise models indicate that, under controlled conditions, the distribution of cavities and mass could allow temporary suspension or partial flotation. Engineers note that achieving such stability requires exact proportions, careful balancing of materials, and a deep understanding of fluid dynamics, all of which suggest advanced knowledge for the time. Even small deviations in cavity size or weight placement dramatically alter the behavior of the models, emphasizing that the Atlanteans must have possessed both the theoretical insight and practical skill to execute these designs with precision. The platform's persistence and resilience under centuries of water pressure remain a testament to their ingenuity. Their broad, level surfaces suggest use for gatherings, observation, or transport, indicating a design that combined practicality with intention. Evidence of wear along the edges implies repeated movement or contact with large objects, potentially vessels, ceremonial artifacts, or human activity. The platforms may have served multiple purposes, functioning as staging areas for ritual, trade, or scientific observation. Their size would allow simultaneous use by numerous participants, hinting at coordinated events or practices that required both stability and expansive space, blending utility with ceremonial significance in ways modern observers struggle to fully interpret. Engravings along the edges depict figures, symbols, and geometric motifs, implying that the platforms were intertwined with ritual, ceremony, or instruction. Some carvings show individuals in coordinated gestures, while others suggest measurements, alignment marks, or symbolic representations of natural phenomena such as tides or stars. These embellishments indicate that the platforms were more than mechanical constructs. They were cultural instruments, encoding knowledge and purpose within their very structure. The integration of symbolic and practical elements reinforces the notion of a civilization where utility and ceremony were inseparable, leaving behind artifacts that are simultaneously functional, instructive, and enigmatic. After careful analysis, the reason these platforms maintain their form and spacing remains unresolved, leaving their original function suspended in uncertainty. Every experiment and observation reveals new facets of their design, yet none fully explains how the Atlanteans achieved stability, partial flotation, or the apparent interaction with environmental forces. Their persistence, precision, and enigmatic purpose continue to challenge contemporary understanding, suggesting a level of ingenuity and knowledge that has been almost entirely lost to history. Hovering in quiet enigma, the platforms suggest a design meant for understanding beyond our reach. The lost Atlantean seal of power. A repeated motif emerges from stone and metal alike, its precision suggesting careful design rather than chance, appearing consistently across ruins separated by vast distances and differing environments. Each seal bears a distinctive shape, often circular or hexagonal with interwoven geometric patterns that hint at both aesthetic intent and purposeful function. The uniformity of these motifs, combined with their enduring material integrity, has led researchers to conclude that the Atlanteans possessed not only advanced craftsmanship but also a standardization system sophisticated enough to imprint a single symbol across an entire civilization. Layers of alloyed metals and crystallized minerals form intricate patterns that have withstood centuries of exposure and corrosion, reflecting both light and shadow in ways that draw attention to the engraving's subtle details. Analytical studies reveal combinations of copper, tin, iron and silicates fused with unusual compounds, producing surfaces resistant to erosion while maintaining intricate relief. Even microscopic examination shows evidence of deliberate polishing and etching, suggesting that these seals were intended to remain visually striking over generations, whether for ritual, authority, or some functional purpose that required longevity and durability. The seal appears in widely separated locations, connecting distant ruins with a network that hints at coordination and shared purpose. Sites from submerged foundations to highland temples all display variations of the same emblem, often positioned in alignment with structural axes or prominent geographic features. This distribution implies a civilization that maintained communication or influence across great distances, embedding its signature in ways that transcended local construction practices. The patterning of placement also suggests strategic or symbolic significance, indicating that the seal may have served as both marker and message, linking disparate centers under a common system of authority or knowledge. Grooves and recessed channels etched into the surface suggest interaction with forces that remain poorly understood, possibly light, magnetism, or heat. Tiny cavities and slits follow precise geometric paths, often radiating from central points or connecting multiple elements of the design. Some researchers speculate that these features could have guided the movement of light or electrical currents, or even channeled energy for unknown technological functions. While experiments can reproduce partial effects using modern materials, no replication fully accounts for the seal's durability, placement, and the apparent influence they exert over surrounding materials, leaving their original design as much a puzzle today as it was when first created. Microscopic inspection reveals faint traces of metallic residue along the grooves and edges, suggesting that the seals may have conducted or stored energy in ways we do not yet understand. Some compounds detected are rare or chemically reactive, hinting that the Atlanteans could manipulate these materials with precision to produce heat, light, or electromagnetic effects. Subtle wear patterns inside the channels indicate repeated exposure to moving elements, possibly liquid or charged particles, reinforcing the idea that the seals were designed for active interaction rather than passive display. These observations raise the possibility that each emblem functioned as part of a larger system connecting multiple seals across structures to create coordinated effects still indecipherable to modern science. References in fragmented texts mention tokens of command or insignias of energy, phrases that resonate with the recurring shape and placement of the seal. Ancient inscriptions, some carved in stone and others preserved on metal tablets, describe artifacts that hold the will of the rulers or direct the flow of power, terminology that aligns uncannily with the patterning of these seals. While translations remain tentative and often symbolic, the overlap between textual description and physical evidence strengthens the argument that the seals were intended to convey both authority and operational function, blending governance, ritual, and technology in a single emblematic object. Scientific analysis of surviving examples reveals subtle conductivity and reflective properties, implying potential technological applications beyond mere symbolism. Certain alloys and crystalline elements within the seals respond to heat, magnetic fields, or light in measurable ways, though the effects are inconsistent and sensitive to environmental conditions. Testing suggests that the Atlanteans may have intentionally designed these features to interact with natural forces, either as a source of illumination, a signaling device, or a mechanism for guiding or regulating other structures. The precision required for such interactions underscores the level of technical knowledge embedded within the civilization, a mastery that modern science has yet to fully reproduce. Many seals are found adjacent to raised platforms, gateways, or ceremonial structures, implying a deliberate integration into social or ritual practices. Their positioning often corresponds with areas that would have been visually or functionally prominent, such as the entrance to a hall, atop steps, or at junctions within complex layouts. Wear patterns on the surrounding stone suggest repeated contact, as if objects or individuals interacted directly with the seal during activities that combined instruction, ceremony, or control. The deliberate combination of placement, material design, and symbolic resonance indicates that the seals were intended to mediate both practical and cultural dimensions of Atlantean life. Unexplained magnetic deviations, faint luminescence, and chemical residues cluster around certain seals, hinting at phenomena that defy conventional understanding. Even careful modern measurement cannot fully predict the behavior of these sites, as minor environmental variations produce subtle yet distinct effects. Some seals appear to influence metallic deposits nearby, while others alter the reflection of light in unpredictable ways. These anomalies reinforce the notion that the seals were more than static markers. They interacted with their surroundings in ways that remain mysterious, hinting at a knowledge of natural and possibly energetic forces lost to time. Mapping, scanning, and comparative studies have yet to reveal the seal's full function, leaving its original meaning obscured by the passage of time. Each discovery raises questions about the extent of Atlantean technological and cultural sophistication, challenging assumptions about what could be accomplished in the prehistoric world. The persistence of the emblem, both physically and conceptually, suggests it represented authority, knowledge, or power of a kind that intertwined governance, ritual, and science into a single enduring artifact. Enduring through time, the seal leaves its enigmatic mark across landscapes and seas, hinting at a civilization whose mastery remains beyond reach.